Let me know if you can hear the sound of my voice, man. You know what I'm saying? By double tapping that screen and also typing in the chat saying, yeah, man, we hear you. What's up, y'all? We had Secretary Known on the chopping block today, guys. There's been a lot going on in Congress, man. We got Secretary Known on the chopping block today. She had to testify in front of Congress, guys. It got kind of heated, you know. It wasn't quite Pam Bundy, but hey, man, they was on her top, y'all. They was on her top. They was not letting up. I'm talking about at all. Let me know if you can hear me down there. You know what I'm saying? Most definitely let me know that y'all can hear me, man. Or we can hear you. You're coming through fine. You know, whatever. We can hear you. I need to know you can hear me. What's up, Bob? He said loud and clear already. What's up, low key? Shout out to the squad, man. Make sure y'all double tapping that screen, man. That's how you hit the like button. You know, if you're on a mobile device, click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up, man. I got a little bit of a couple of updates on the Iran situation too. You know, Trump spoke on it. Caroline Levit spoke on it. But right now, you know, we're on Kristi Noem, guys. Y'all know Democrats have been calling for her job. They want her impeached. You know, basically they want her out of her position, her job. They like, man, she's terrible at doing what she's doing because of the recent actions of ICE, guys. You know, and not to mention, you know, she called Alex Preddy and Renee Good, guys, basically like some terror with the ist at the end, guys. Had people pretty upset about that. You know, she was asked about that as well as a host of other things regarding the situation with ICE, man. It's crazy, y'all. It's crazy. But for sure, man, we in the building. This is Everything News. Make sure you double tapping that screen as you enter the building, guys. This is how you hit the like button. The like button helps out the channel. So make sure you're doing your part by hitting that like button. Either double tap your screen, mobile device, or click the 3 dots in the right-hand corner, hit that thumbs up. As we get into Kristi Noem's, you know, what she testified to in front of Congress today, guys. Let's get it.
As well, and the distinguished members of this committee. I appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you today and talk about the important matters and work that the Department of Homeland Security does every single day. The Department of Homeland Security.
Hey, could maybe pull the microphone closer to you, please? Okay. And the red light is on?
Yep, it is.
Okay, proceed.
The Department of Homeland Security was established in the aftermath of 9/11, one of the darkest days in our nation's history. That resulted in the death of nearly 3,000 Americans. The mission of the Department of Homeland Security at that time was just as critical as it is today. We protect our American people, we prevent acts of terrorism, and we defend our homeland. Every action that the Department of Homeland Security takes is guided by that mission and by that responsibility. Thanks to President Trump's leadership and the hard work of the men and women of DHS, our department has delivered historic results and has made our communities safer. Since the start of President Trump's second term, daily encounters along the southwest border declined by 96% compared to the Biden administration's daily average. We've reached the lowest levels ever recorded in U.S. Customs and Border Protection's history. In President Trump's first year, total Border Patrol apprehensions along the southwest border were less than the average of a single month under the Biden administration. For 10 straight months, the Border Patrol has released 0 illegal aliens into the interior of the United States. And in President Trump's historic first year back in office, nearly 3 million illegal aliens have left the United States as a result of the administration's enforcement.
This is Secretary Noem, guys. Remember, they've been calling for a job, you know, over the latest antics, basically, of ICE, guys, not to mention the unaliving of Alex Preddy and Renee Good in Minnesota, guys. Yeah, she's got a lot of pressure on her shoulders, man, and Congress didn't make it any better because they asked her all the tough questions.
Efforts from following the law. That includes 2.2 million that have voluntarily left and returned back to their home countries, and more than 675,000 detainments and deportations. A majority of the aliens that were arrested by Immigrations and Customs Enforcement have a criminal record and have been charged with or convicted of secondary crimes in addition to their initial crime of being in the United States illegally. During this period, ICE has arrested over 1,500 known and suspected terrorists, more than 7,700 known gang members, many of them that were allowed to come into this country under the Biden administration. We have also reached the lowest murder rate in the last 125 years since that data was tracked. Under President Biden, more than 450,000 unaccompanied alien children went missing or were lost due to the dangerous open border policies that were embraced. Under President Trump, the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Health and Human Services have already located over 145,000 of these children and returned them back to their families and back to people who
She's
care.
basically over the border and ICE, guys. This is Kristi Noem, Secretary Kristi Noem, guys. Like I said before, if you haven't been paying attention, let me tell you, they want her out of her job. They calling, the Democrats are calling for her impeachment. And yeah, man, it's pretty bad out there.
About them. And we will not stop until every single one of those children is found. Fentanyl trafficking at the southern border is down. It's been cut by over 56% because of that secure border and the enforcement actions that have been taken there. And that's compared to the same period of time in 2024. The Coast Guard has seized enough cocaine the past year to prevent quantities capable of killing more than 193 million Americans, and it's kept them off of our streets. In fact, total interdiction efforts under the Trump administration have prevented 1.7 billion lethal doses of drugs from killing our next generation of Americans. These results reflect the fact that we are enforcing the laws that Congress has passed. I want to address the dangerous environment that our ICE officers face on the streets today. They are facing a serious and escalating threat as a result of deliberate
ICE is doing the most, I ain't gonna lie.
Characterizations of their heroic work and rhetoric that demonizes our law enforcement. DHS has documented an 8,000% increase in death threats against our ICE officers and their families, as well as more than 1,300% increase in assaults while carrying out the lawful enforcement operations that they do every single day. I recognize that members of this committee may hold differing views about immigration policy, but it's important that we distinguish between disagreements over policy and the department's operational responsibility to enforce existing law that has been passed by Congress. It's our duty as a department to defend our homeland. The latest Democrat-led shutdown of DHS is reckless, it's unnecessary, and it undermines the American national security, and it harms the men and women who work at DHS and their families. Despite the House passing a bipartisan, bicameral full-year DHS funding bill, it is Senate Democrats who've chosen not to fund the department and have held this department hostage. As a result, critical national security missions, including border security, immigration enforcement, aviation security, disaster response, cybersecurity, and the protection of critical infrastructure are all being strained. Our ability to provide for a safe and successful World Cup is being hindered as well. More than 100,000 dedicated DHS employees are once again being asked to work without pay for the third time in just 5 months. At a time when we've produced the most secure border in history and removed nearly 3 million illegal aliens from our country, disrupting the department responsible for those gains is indefensible. I want to thank the men and women of the Department of Homeland Security for their professionalism, for their dedication, for their commitment to keeping America safe and continuing to show up and work even though they aren't being compensated for it. They've kept us safe and they have patience and are—
Sounds pretty convincing, huh? Yeah, what she's saying right now sounds pretty convincing until they start asking questions, guys.
Success is only possible because of their service and sacrifices. I also want to thank our angel families that are behind us to tell their stories and testimonies, and also thank my husband for being here in support as well. Thank you for the opportunity to testify,
your
Mr.
husband
Chairman,
can't say.
and to all the distinguished members. I look forward to—
They gonna handle you like your husband wasn't here.
Senator Kennedy, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Secretary, for being here. President Trump, ably assisted by Mr. Stephen Miller, quickly in the president's second administration developed policies to secure our southern border, policies that you and the Department of Homeland Security implemented. And I congratulate all of you on your success.
This is Mr.
Properly
Kennedy right here.
vetting people at the southern border is not racist, is it?
No,
Could you answer for the record?
no, it is not racist.
Properly vetting people at the southern border is prudent, isn't it?
Yes, sir, it is.
And to do that, we need the Border Patrol, do we not?
Yes, we do.
And we also need ICE, do we not?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I just wanted to get my congratulations on the record. I believe you have a policy, Madam Secretary, that you have to approve all contracts at your department over $100 million.
No, sir, I have a policy in place that I review contracts. My deputy chiefs have the ability to review anything under 5 million. Above that, I evaluate and look at.
Okay. And you do that, I understand, to try to curb waste and abuse of taxpayer money. Is that right?
Yes, sir. In fact, it's been extremely effective. We've saved the taxpayers over $13.2 billion just by evaluating contracts.
Oh, yeah,
negotiating
really?
lower ones and canceling ones that aren't necessary to do our duties.
How do you square that concern for waste, which I share, with the fact that you have spent $220 million running television advertisements that feature you prominently?
Remember, I told y'all it sound good till they start asking questions. Yeah, he asked her about the way she's spending that money. Let's talk about it.
Sir, the president tasked me with getting the message out to the country and to other countries where we were seeing the invasion come from, with putting commercials out that told them that if they were in this country illegally, that they needed to leave, or we would detain them and remove them, and they'd not get the chance to come back to America the right way. That has been extremely effective.
Ask you to run these advertisements, is that right?
We had that conversation, yes, before I was put in this position and sworn in and confirmed, and since then as well.
Okay. Did you bid out those service contracts?
Yes, they did. They went out to a competitive bid, and career officials at the department chose who would do those advertising commercials.
And the people that you ended up picking were people who had formerly done your political work back in South Dakota, is that right?
No, that's not correct, sir.
I see somebody down there say she the best ever. Well, the Democrats say she the worst ever, and she deserves to be impeached. What you think about that?
I think it is.
No, it's not, sir. The individuals who, I believe the careers who they chose were two different media firms. There's been conversation about their subcontractors, but we have no legal authority to look into subcontractors on work like that.
Okay. And you're saying that you're testifying that President Trump approved this ahead of time. Is that my understanding?
We had conversations about making sure that we were telling people.
No, ma'am. I'm asking you, sorry to interrupt, but the president approved ahead of time you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
$200 million? What? Did he say 200 million? Hold up.
Yes, sir. We went
running TV ads $220 million.
$220 million running TV ads, guys. 220 million. Wow. $220 million for some TV ads. Good Lord, that's a lot of money.
Running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes, did it
Did the
correctly,
president
worked
know
with
you were gonna do
OMB.
this?
Yes,
He did?
yes.
Okay.
And one
Hey,
thing,
Ms.
Senator,
Fat.
I think would be helpful to know is how effective that communications has been. That
Well, they were
overwhelmingly.
effective in your name recognition. I mean, I personally just, I mean, to me, it puts the president in a terribly awkward spot. And and I'm not saying you're not telling the truth. It's just hard for me to believe, knowing the president, as I do, that you said, Mr. President, here's some ads I've cut and I'm going to spend $220 million running them, that he would have agreed to that. I don't think Russ Vogt at OMB.
She says Trump agreed to her spending $220 million for some TV ads. $220 million. I wouldn't agree to that.
He would have agreed to that. It's something we have to defend. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. My research shows that you did not bid them out, that you pick, in fact, one of the people you picked, the strategy group, Safe America
Hey,
Media
Maddie.
was a company formed 11 days before you picked them, and that the strategy group got most of the money, and the head of that is...
Right, Miss Fat. All while Americans are struggling just to pay these high bills, guys. The economy went up, but your paychecks didn't type thing. You know, everything costs an arm and a leg these days, and they spending $220 million on some TV ads. Wow.
married to your former spokesperson. Look, we all have friends who are qualified. I'm not quibbling with that. It troubles me. A fifth to a quarter of $1 billion of taxpayer money when we're scratching for every penny and we're fighting over rescission packages. I just can't agree with Madam Secretary. Are you still running those ads?
No, Senator, I did not have anything to do with picking those contractors.
Thank you, Maddie.
No politicals at the Department of Homeland Security did.
I understand.
Golden girls in the
running
house.
those
Thank
ads?
you, Maddie.
Competitive bid process for
Are you
that.
still running
Everything
those
was.
ads?
I think the ads are due to end here in March, I think within a week or
So
two.
they
I'm
are
not sure of the
still
update.
running?
The one that is running is focusing on angel families. Have you seen that? It is the one that's talking about this is our why. This is why we work every day.
Okay.
Is for the angel
I've gotta
families
move
and their
on.
victims that need to.
Already.
After the two killings in Minneapolis, and I think there's a lot of video on them, Madam Secretary. I think people can see the video and draw their own conclusions. Are you and your department conducting an investigation of those?
Sir, the investigation is being led by the FBI. HSI was involved. In fact,
Shout out to Maddie for that 20. Shout out to Maddie for grabbing her membership. And shout out to Maddie for gifting the membership. If you're the lucky person and you're in the building, make sure that you thank Maddie because she just put you in the game. I think it went to Cupcake. Lord have mercy. Let's go. Ain't nothing like a mother gifting a daughter a membership. Let's go.
HSI and the agents on the ground.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I got so little time. I believe at the time, you said these were acts of domestic terrorism, is that right?
Sir, in answer to questions at the press conference that afternoon, it was that it appeared to be.
Yeah, but you said these appeared to be acts of domestic terrorism.
And as I've said previously in this hearing,
But
is that
first, Madam Secretary, did you say
we're getting
that?
She getting a little
information
snap.
from a chaotic scene on
It's
the
her voice
ground
tone.
and relaying information to the American people.
Okay. Now, again, those videos are public. People can draw their own conclusions. I think it'd be safe to say you got some pushback on that. Would that be fair?
Yes, sir.
and get some criticism. I'm not saying the criticism was accurate or inaccurate. I think you just...
Is it me or does he look like Piers Morgan a little bit? He look like Piers Morgan a little bit, don't he? He a Kennedy, but he kind of look like Piers Morgan to me, just a tad bit.
Did. What got my attention was that you blame those statements.
Shout out to Maddie for gifting another membership. Shout out to you. Hey, if you're in the building and happen to receive that, make sure you thank Maddie.
Mr. Stephen Miller at the White House. Did you not?
No, sir, I did not. And in fact, where you're seeing that is in a news article of anonymous sources. And anonymous sources say a lot of things, but I've never said that at all.
Well, here's what you said on the record. I'm going to read your words. Quote, everything I've done at the direction of the president and Stephen.
Sir, where did you see me say that at? You read that in a news article with no sources affiliated to it.
You said it on the record on January 27th of 2026. Did I read your words accurate?
I enjoy working with the president and with Stephen Miller, and that day we were working to get as much information to the American people as possible. That is what we'll continue to do, and as that happens, we'll go forward.
Do you think it was fair to blame Mr. Miller?
Sir, I did not do that. You're reading from a newspaper article with anonymous sources.
Are you denying that you said that?
Sir, I'm not going to speak to that situation that is relayed on anonymous sources that no one has heard me say that.
It was you.
No. Who reported that to that newspaper?
They're quoting you on the record.
No. He said, no, ma'am. That was you. No, you said that. Yeah, they quoted you saying that. You most definitely said it while she's saying it wasn't me. It was AI. That's basically what she said. AI, I didn't say that. AI said that. He like, no, you said it.
It's Stephen's fault. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, thank you for being here. I'm really glad that a lot of
he acting like Matlock. Let's go.
Talked about the disaster that Biden and Mayorkas, your predecessor, created. It was absurd.
Hey, Bobby.
You heard the things from Senator Brett, people that came over here who themselves were traumatized by the very people who then come to this country and traumatize American citizens. You heard Senator Schmidt saying the same thing. A lot of us are very frustrated with the disaster that President Biden left behind and a failed DHS. It's why I'm angry, and it's why I've been critical.
Let's go, Bobby.
Because we're missing an opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the reasons President Trump won a year and a half ago.
Hey, Ballin, she hitting the yellow beezy on them. These people lying on me. That's on me, babe.
Is because people were sick and tired of a Democratic administration's open border policy and allowing millions of people to come to this country. 1.7 million called gotaways. We don't even know where they are, but we know when you pay a premium to a cartel to get them into this country, they're bad people. Now, why have I been critical of Secretary Noem? Because I don't think we're focusing on, we have limited resources. ICE can't be everywhere at once. There's very few people in Capitol Hill that support law enforcement more than me, including the sworn ICE officers. In fact, I've just been told, fortunately, in about a week and a half, we're going to get a plaque on the wall over the Capitol, thanking the Capitol police officers and all the agencies that responded on January 6th. All those things.
Whatever was said, he don't like that. Look at his face. He is angry, guys. Real talk. Let's go, Maddie. Yeah, he big mad.
Thugs have actually been pardoned, and yet we haven't thanked the Capitol police officers for their work here. So when I say I'm unapologetically pro-law enforcement, you can count in every single sworn officer in Homeland Security. So why am I disappointed with Secretary Noem? Because we're not going after enough people who did this damage at the expense of running numbers that Stephen Miller wants out of the White House. We just want numbers. We want 1,000 a day, 6,000 a day, 9,000 a day, because numbers matter, right? No, they don't matter. Quality matters. Not quantity, quality. And what we've seen is a disaster. Under your leadership.
Yeah, a lot of people got numbers, but that ain't what matter. Y'all heard, I'm clipping that, ball. Yeah. Y'all worried about numbers, 9,000, 9,000 a day, 5,000, 100,000. It ain't about no numbers. It's about quality. Let's talk about it.
Ms. Nome, a disaster. What we've seen is innocent people getting detained that turn out are American citizens. I could talk about the culture that's been created here with Stephen Miller aiding and abetting. I heard first reports that he was the one that said it was a domestic terrorist situation where 2 people lost their lives in Minneapolis. I've heard that report. Maybe you can refute it. I don't know that we'll have time for you to respond because I'm giving you a performance evaluation here. I'm not looking for a response. And I'm saying, Ms. Nome, that time after time after time I've been disappointed. But before I get back to looking at the vicious people that did this damage to these families, I want to talk a minute about FEMA. You have a policy right now that anything over $100,000 has to go through your desk for approval. I asked my staff, because I'm a management consultant, I don't try to do cheap shots in here, but the facts do not lie. This is your administration for FEMA response. This is President Trump's
He on that top.
first administration. Which one would you like to have? If you're a state that has a $60 billion disaster, your biggest disaster in South Dakota that I can tell that when you were an elected official was about $500 million. So 1/100th of this single storm where thousands of people are hurting in North Carolina and you're just barely catching up. This is what competent FEMA leadership looks like. This is what incompetent FEMA leadership looks like. And people are hurting in Western North Carolina from the most significant storm they've ever experienced. This is what we need more of. I'm convinced you can't do it. If you're requesting a review of $100,000 and up, then it begs the question, why? Why would you be involved in that? Why would that be a policy? And in a minute, I'll ask about some people that are involved, some special government employees. Why are they involved in it? Thank you.
Senator,
No.
that $100,000
You can finish
that $100,000
after my 10
only
minutes
had
are
to
done,
do.
and I will hold the clock until I finish.
Okay.
The bottom line is I've done the analysis, and you can say whatever you want to. I worked with a Democrat governor. I worked with a Republican governor.
You can say whatever you want. He already did the math. It ain't no. He basically said it ain't no use of saying nothing. I don't believe you. He said he don't believe her. She said whatever. He already did the math.
Worked with fiscal research. We have people contacting my office now to get the information to better understand the failure of this department. You failed at FEMA, and in fact, if I get to it, actually, why don't I cover this right now? The Homeland Security Act of 2002 expressly prohibits the Secretary of Homeland Security from restricting or diverting FEMA resources from the agency's mission. Based on your disaster response, the chart that I just showed you, I have reason to believe that you're violating the law, either knowingly or unknowingly. So I'll be asking and getting a submission to the record, submitting a question for the record, what the total amount of FEMA reimbursements are currently being held by DHS, awaiting for final approval. Held by DHS, awaiting for final approval for an agency that you should not be obstructing the disbursement on. I'm going to give you time to answer to it under penalty of perjury so that we can get it right.
Oh, wow.
Now, going back to Minneapolis. Why can't we just say...
I don't know who this dude here, I don't just know him like that. But hey, he ain't cutting her no slack. He said he gonna let her testify under the term under perjury. Yeah, you lie. Yeah, this is going on the record. You know what I'm saying? And you will be charged if you lie. That's basically what he just told her.
Made a mistake. I will ask you one question, if you could just give me a quick response. Who does Tom Homan work for? You or the president?
The president.
Okay. Why is that? Because I believe the president recognized that you weren't getting it done in Minneapolis, and you're putting us further away from pointing to this. We're beginning to get the American people to think that deporting people is wrong. It's the exact opposite. The way you're going about deporting them is wrong. The fact that you can't admit to a mistake, which looks like under investigation, is going to prove that Miss Good and Mr. Pretty probably should not have been shot in the face and in the back. Law enforcement needs to learn from that. You don't protect them by not looking after the facts. Not only should the FBI be investigating it, but every single law enforcement agency in that jurisdiction should be invited to it. So
He going so hard, man. Y'all got to get my likes up. Double tap that screen, man. If you have not, double tap the screen. If you're on a mobile device, that's how you hit the like button. That's one way. Or you can click the three dots in the right-hand corner. Hit that thumbs up, guys. Yeah, he is ripping Christie a new one right now. You know, with what he's saying. Hey, he ain't leaving nothing out, man. He ain't leaving nothing out. Double tap that screen, guys. Let's get the likes up. We need them past 100. 20 more likes, man. If you don't mind, double tap that screen if you're on a mobile device, or click those three dots, hit that thumbs up. This is good. Let's go.
our law enforcement officers do not have this pall cast upon them. One of the reasons why ICE officers are having threats, and damn the people that threaten ICE officers, because so many of them are doing a good job, is because you've cast a pall on them by acting like we should investigate things differently. Officer-involved shootings have a formula that we should go through every time. And we're not going through that formula. As a matter of fact, in Ms. Good's case, I think that they were even saying that maybe there wasn't even a need to do it in the DOJ. I hope that that's changed. But I'm telling you, it was a civil rights review. I saw your frown. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But originally, Blanche said there wouldn't be an investigation. Folks, law enforcement, we've got to have their back. We've got to make it clear when they make a mistake, then they get corrected for it. But you don't walk away from it, and you've done it too many times. Now, Secretary, I read your book last week. And honestly, some of the parts of it impressed me, but some of it distresses me. And I'll give you a good example of one that does. The passage where you talk about killing a dog that was 14 months old. I train dogs, all right? And you are a farmer. You should know better. You should know that if you're going out to a hunting lodge and you're putting pheasants out and you're putting dogs out, you don't take a puppy out there.
Let's go.
A 14-month-old dog is basically a teenager.
Yeah, we getting on about a dog, what she said about a dog, too. Yeah, he ain't leaving nothing out. I told y'all, this guy right here was thorough in his research of her, and he ain't leaving nothing out. He done got on about a dog. I'm just saying. Yeah, you shouldn't have never did your dog like that. You know better. Hey, man, they chunking everything at her but the kitchen sink. I'm just saying. We need 5 more on that like button, man. If you're watching from a mobile device, double tap your screen or click those 3 dots and hit that thumbs up. Matter of fact, share your boy out and tell him that, hey, man, it's a good show going on over here. Good Lord. Let's go.
In dog years. You decided to kill that dog because you had not invested the appropriate time in training, and then you have the audacity to go into a book and say it's a leadership lesson about tough choices. It's in your book. We could play it if we had time. At that same lunch hour, you killed a
man. What did this got to do, man? He done read her book. I told y'all he went down through there. He ain't playing.
Goat.
Said something about a goat. Now we on the goat.
Behaving badly. You are a farmer. You don't castrate a goat. They behave badly. You should have probably done that before. But my point is, those are bad decisions made in the heat of the moment. Not unlike what happened up in Minneapolis. I expect we're an exceptional nation. And one of the reasons we're exceptional is we expect exceptional leadership. And you've demonstrated anything but that in the time that I've seen you responding to the emergency in North Carolina and across the Southeast, and acknowledging when mistakes are made, and speaking too soon for the expedient of social media or whatever it is. I'll leave you with this, Ms. Nome. I'm expecting answers to Charlotte's Web. I requested it a month ago. That was one of the investigations in Charlotte, 20 minutes from where I live. All I asked for, if it had to be anonymized, was information so that I could determine if your hit rate is right. I want to find more of those people, and I want to detain fewer of the others. And Mr. Chair, in my remaining time, I have a lot to go. But I want to submit this letter.
He said, I got a lot. I told y'all, he from the bottom to the top.
10 different instances under Ms. Nome's leadership where they've been misled and not allowed to pursue investigations that they think are critically important. Does anybody have any idea how bad it has to be for the OIG in this agency to come out and do this publicly? That is stonewalling. That's a failure of leadership, and that is why I've called for your resignation. And if I don't get an answer to these...
I told y'all, he said, that's why I've called for your resignation. I told you, they want her out of there. She can resign or be impeached. That's what they saying.
Questions. I don't want an applause. Please don't do that for me. If I don't get an answer to these questions, if I don't get an answer that you've had a month to respond to, and the remaining ones, as of today, I'll be informing leadership that I'm putting a hold on any en bloc nominations until I get a response. And in 2 weeks, if I don't get a response, I'm going to deny quorum and markup in as many committees as I can until I get a response. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Ain't no wiggling out of this one. She better respond. She got a month or it's going down.
Thanks for holding this oversight hearing. After months of excuses and delays from Secretary Noem, we finally gathered together. When I was chair, I restored this committee's long-standing tradition of regular oversight hearings with the Secretary of Homeland Security. Today's hearing is long overdue. We are joined today by friends and family members of individuals currently in ICE detention or who have been deported. I thank them for traveling here today. Their presence is a reminder that the policies implemented by DHS under your leadership, Madam Secretary, have a devastating impact on the lives of real people. Let me also say a word of those who have been, their families have been the victim of violence by immigrants. Although immigrants as a group commit less crime than native-born Americans, there is no excuse for violence, and what you've gone through is a just terrible situation that I will willingly acknowledge. From my point of view, we need an orderly process at the border to start with. And secondly, we should never knowingly allow a dangerous person into this country. And if someone is in this country seeking citizenship and commits a crime, serious crime, they should be asked to leave or incarcerated. Bottom line, there's a way to deal with immigration that is sensible and humane on both sides. More than a dozen years ago, 2 members of this committee, myself and another member, worked with a bipartisan group under Senator John McCain to write a comprehensive immigration law which dealt with many of the issues we've been working on since. It passed in the United States Senate with over 60 votes, bipartisan, supported by business and labor and religious leaders across the board. Unfortunately, the Republican leadership in the House of Representatives refused to take it up. Had we passed that and made it the law of the land, we could have avoided a lot of the terrible things that have occurred since. Madam Secretary, under your leadership, the Homeland Security Department has been devoid of any moral compass or respect for the rule of law. Without hesitation or remorse, DHS agents have wreaked havoc in our cities. I've seen
Come on, speed it up, guys, speed it up.
acted with unspeakable cruelty against children, immigrant families, and American citizens. This administration's reckless immigration enforcement campaign is creating fear in communities and eroding the foundational tenets of our democracy. Democrats believe that Congress must do its job and rein in ICE abuses by requiring immigration agents to simply follow the same rules as local police. While Republicans claim the DHS shutdown is putting us at risk, the reality is this administration has engaged in mass layoffs of career national security officials and diverted many others from protecting the homeland of the president's with the president's mass deportation campaign. This is all while Secretary Noem is sitting on an unprecedented amount of appropriated funds, more than the United States Marine Corps. The Republicans in Congress gave her this and gave her virtual decision-making power in terms of the execution of policies. And she is spending nearly $300 million on a fleet of luxury private jets.
Oh, wow.
So she can travel in style. Really? Secretary Noem has repeatedly claimed that the department is arresting the, quote, worst of the worst and making American cities safe. In fact, less than 14% of immigrants arrested during Trump's first year back in office had charges or convictions for violent criminal offenses. Less than 14%, 1 out of 7. Immigration agents arrive in cities without consulting local law enforcement. They roam the streets in paramilitary gear and arrest and detain people based on the color of their skin, their accents, and the language they speak. The infamous Kavanaugh stops. That is not a public safety operation. That is a paramilitary occupation. And Secretary Noem has made excessive force the department's default position. In my home state of Illinois, during the so-called Operation Midway Blitz, agents violently attacked, tackled, arrested, and detained immigrants and citizens. They conducted a military-style raid on an apartment complex, kicking down doors and zip-tying children. A Border Patrol agent shot an American citizen, Miramar Martinez, multiple times, 5 times. She miraculously survived. After the incident, the agent bragged on the internet, 5 shots, 7 holes.
Wow.
This administration didn't just shoot her 5 times. They called her a domestic terrorist, tried to prosecute her on trumped-up charges that were ultimately withdrawn, and fought the public release of evidence in her case. In Minnesota, your agents shot and killed Renee Good and Alex Preddy, 2 American citizens. And as their families struggle with these horrible tragedies, they had to fight baseless accusations of domestic terrorism from Secretary Noem, the head of the agency responsible for their loved one's death. The department has also translated the president's racist attacks into immigration policy. President Trump has repeatedly called Somali immigrants, and I quote, garbage, and said that he doesn't want immigrants from what he calls, and I'm going to clean this up, S-hole countries. I heard him say that in the Oval Office repeatedly. Secretary Noem responded to what she called, quote, a full travel ban on every damn country that's been flooding our nation with killers, leeches, and entitlement junkies. It just so happens that every country covered by the Trump-Noem ban has a majority non-white population. Earlier this month, the Trump administration deployed Border Czar Tom Homan to Minneapolis, supposedly to end Operation Metro Surge. The president is reading his sinking poll numbers and finally recognized the American people are sick and tired and fed up with this heavily armed, masked secret police agents causing chaos in our cities. But the reality is the administration has not backed down from Stephen Miller's 3,000 person a day arrest quota. Meeting this quota is impossible without continuing indiscriminate enforcement. There simply are not enough of the so-called worst of the worst to do it. ICE agents are even arresting trafficking survivors like Luna, who was abused for years. In February 2025, the Trump DHS found Luna's application for a trafficking visa.
He giving some
was
good
bona fide.
information. He just
Today,
taking forever to
Luna
get
is
where he
still in
going. Come
detention.
on, man, speed it up.
DHS has launched a cruel scheme to purchase massive warehouses for detaining immigrants, some designed to hold 8,000 people. To put that in perspective, our largest federal prison holds 4,000. Listen to what the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops said about this. The thought of holding thousands of families in massive warehouses should challenge the conscience of every American. Whatever their immigration status, these are human beings created in the image and likeness of God, and this is a moral inflection point for our country. Even with tens of billions of dollars at your disposal, the administration already cannot meet the basic needs of the 65,000 people currently in immigration detention. Detained individuals, including children and infants, are subject to abusive conditions and inadequate medical care. This includes Liam Ramos, the 5-year-old arrested with his father in Minnesota, who became ill in detention, and Amalia, an 18-month-old baby who became so sick with a respiratory illness she was hospitalized for 10 days, only to be returned to detention and denied medication. We have also seen an unprecedented number of deaths in ICE custody. 7 people died last December alone. 9 have died this year. This includes Geraldo Lunas Campos, who was choked to death by guards. This avoidable tragedy
I
was
don't know where
classified as a
Elon
homicide
is,
by the county
but
medical
I'm finna
examiner.
skip past him
The
because he
Department of
talking too
Homeland
slow. He
Security's
gonna put us all to
response:
sleep.
try and deport the witnesses as quickly as possible, every day.
Very much for coming. Can you hear me?
Yep,
Thank
now
you.
we can.
Thanks very much. Well, let's talk about the scope of the problem you inherited here. My Democratic friends said that sensible immigration is what they've been pursuing, talked about the Gang of Eight and a lot of things I've worked on.
Now
with.
this about to be
Would you
good.
say that the 4 years of Biden was sensible immigration?
No,
I wouldn't either. I would say it's obliteration of the border. 11 million people came into this country during President Biden's term. He obliterated all controls. We sent them all over the country in planes, trains, and automobiles. And what's the scope of the problem you inherited? How would you describe the mess that Biden gave you very quickly?
Our country was in a chaotic time and invaded over our southern border. Millions and millions of people came into this country.
For 11,000
unvetted.
murderers, right?
Yes, that is correct.
2,700% increase in people on the terrorist watch list, right?
That's correct.
During his 4 years, President Biden allowed 2,700% increase of people on the terrorist watch list to come into this country. In 2023, 172. Do you know where those people are?
No, not
So
necessarily.
we don't know where they are. They're here, but we don't know where they are because they didn't care if they came and they haven't really looked very hard. So sensible immigration died on Biden's watch. It was replaced by out of control, open border, just absolute chaos. And to all the people on the front row that have lost loved ones, I am sorry. Your family members are a victim of an out-of-control, Democratic-led effort to obliterate the border, and every senator on this side of the aisle, that side of the aisle, did nothing about it. Now, they want to talk to you about problems we've had. Are these shootings being investigated in Minnesota?
Yes, they are.
They should be investigated in Minnesota. We want to have orderly processes. How would you say being an ICE agent is right now, the stress they're under?
I think it's unprecedented for them every day.
Yeah, he gotta be he gotta be a Republican. Yeah, he putting it down. See, I told you they be making some good points sometimes. How many of y'all believe him so far?
I think it's miserable. I think it's just a tough job right now. And if they go too far, we will hold them accountable. But I just want the country to know these men and women who are trying to solve this problem that was created by our Democratic colleagues, you have no idea of the mess they inherited. This country was overrun by illegal immigrants, murderers, rapists, and just average everyday people. How many people did Barack Obama deport when he was president?
The total, I
3
don't know, but
million.
it was more than us.
How many of them were violent criminals? So when a Democrat deports somebody who's here illegally, that's good government. When a Republican does it, we're Nazis and fascists. If you're here illegally, are you entitled to stay?
No.
They would allow you to stay. I want you to understand that these people have no interest in cleaning up this mess. In 2026, we're going to have an election about this, and they're openly saying, unless you're a violent criminal, you should be allowed to stay here. Is embezzlement a violent crime?
No.
Is it a crime without a
Miss
victim?
Fat.
Yes.
If somebody
Miss Fat got a good point. She say, basically it's not about the deportations. It's the way that Trump did it. I seen a couple of people say that. Let's go.
steals your stuff, even if they don't do it through force, is that a crime with a victim?
Yes.
So all of the Laken Riley, I think she was murdered by a man who was actually in custody. Are you familiar with the Laken Riley case?
Yes, I am.
Okay, she's a young lady about 60 miles from where I live. The man who murdered her was in custody, was detained by DHS, but was released because they had no bed space in Texas. He went to New York and committed a bunch of crimes. He winds up in Georgia and he murders this young lady. He was in our control. He was released not because he wasn't dangerous, because we had no place to put him. Do you agree those days are over?
Yes.
Do you agree the most secure border in American history has been achieved by you and those under your control?
Yes.
Working with President Trump. Are you proud of that?
I am proud of that.
So we're down to like nobody coming across. We went from a invasion to almost nobody. And I hope the American people appreciate that's a good thing for you. Mm-hmm. Now we're engaged in military action against the mothership of terrorism, Iran, which I hope will sink pretty soon. Do you think the threat level against the United States is up or down when it comes to radical Islamic terrorists?
It's up.
It's up?
Yep.
So you mean
Speaking of Iran, you know what I'm saying? Speaking of Iran, like I told y'all, Trump and Levit had a little bit to say. Check this out. It's Trump speaking on the run.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. We're coming on the air, taking you straight to the Oval Office. President Trump meeting with the German chancellor, the first world leader to meet face-to-face with Trump since the attacks on Iran, a war that's showing no signs of ending anytime soon, and travel out of the region becoming much more difficult. Let's listen in.
Very strong. We've been able to do our deals, and it's been very strong. We'll obviously be talking a little bit about Iran today, and he's been helping us out. We've been very nice, actually. And that is coming along, as you see, very well. They have no Navy, it's been knocked out. They have no Air Force, it's been knocked out. They have no air detection, that's been knocked out. Their radar has been knocked out. And just about everything's been knocked out. So we'll see how we do, but we're doing very well. We have a great military, and they're doing a fantastic job. So we'll be talking about that. And we're talking about some very big trade deals, and those I know will work out too. So I just want to say it's a great honor to have you at the Oval Office, the beautiful Oval Office, beautiful White House. It's a special place, even from your standpoint, and you have some very special places too. And I look forward to being with you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, for having me here in this Oval Office for the third time now.
Yeah.
Really happy to have the opportunity to speak with you in these challenging times. We are on the same page in terms of getting this terrible regime in Tehran away, and we will talk about the day after, what will happen then if they are out. We have to talk about our trade agreement, which I would like to be in place as soon as possible. And we have to talk about Ukraine. There are too many bad guys in this world, actually, and this is an issue we have to talk about because we all want to see this war coming to an end as soon as possible. But Ukraine has to preserve its territory and their security interests, and, well, we will talk about that.
We will.
Looking forward to that.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you
That's some
for your
interesting.
hospitality. Thank you for letting me spending the night in your guest house.
That's
It's a
right.
very, very
Good.
comfortable place.
You liked it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, great place.
That's
And a famous place.
That's
yeah?
good. Very
So
famous.
many former presidents.
That's
there.
right.
Yeah.
Very famous place. Any questions, please?
Mr. President, did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything,
Man, Trump said he thought they was going to attack. He thought he had, you know what I'm saying? There wasn't a doubt in his mind they was going, Iran been trying to get Trump. Maybe that's what he meant by attack, trying to attack him.
might have forced Israel's hand, but Israel was ready and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact because virtually everything they have has been knocked out now. Their missile count is going way down. Amazingly, they're hitting countries that were, let's call them neutral, right? They lived together for a long time. I think they were surprised. I was surprised. And now those countries are all fighting against them and fighting strongly against them. Someday they'll write a story and they'll say why they did that, but they hit countries that had nothing to do with what's going on. They were sort of leaving everything alone. All of a sudden they had missiles shot in, which shows you the level of evil that we're dealing with. They'll hit people that were actually at least somewhat friendly, and they had no problems with it. Civilian places, hotels and apartment buildings, and we're hitting them where it is much more appropriate. We're hitting them very hard, and the big scale hitting goes now. They no longer have air protection. They no longer have any detection facilities at all left, and so they're gonna be in for a lot of hurt. These are bad people. These are people that killed. I guess it's 35,000. It's coming out 35,000 over the last 3 weeks. Protesters, 35,000 violently killed. So these are.
Man, I'm telling y'all, Trump said he thought strongly Iran was finna do something. Iran has put money on Trump's head before, during his first term. And, they found the people that did it. So I think this is, in my opinion, may be more personal for Trump than it is concerning the U.S. That's just me. I'm just saying, you knew somebody had money on your head, you'll try to eliminate them too. Yeah, but back to Christy Nome.
They actually may want to come here.
We'll finish Trump in a minute.
Iran. I don't think you have to be, a general to figure that out. Is the Coast Guard without funding?
Portions of it. We're keeping some of the salaries paid, but
So there's no funds in the appropriation bill for the Coast Guard. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Because your agency is not being funded. It's the one part of the appropriations bill where we haven't agreed on funding. Is that correct?
Correct.
So FEMA, no money, right? Coast Guard, no money. Really? Really? ICE, they have money because of the bill we did before. The Secret Service, are these people being paid?
What's up, Clayco?
Yes, they are.
They're being paid, but do we have money?
Our law enforcement is paid, but their resources, their administrative
They're not
staff,
being
their
paid out of
contracting.
appropriated funds
Correct.
this year, right?
Correct.
So in the appropriations process, we've got no new money for the Secret Service. Does that make any sense to anybody in America? Can we not understand America is under siege now? Likely to be attacked because radical Islam is under siege and they're going to hit back. And we're sitting here looking at each other and not funding DHS. If you want to reform ICE, great.
Let's go,
Count
Jazzy.
me in. If you want to make DHS more professional, count me in. If you want to investigate bad shootings, count me in. If you don't want to do away with sanctuary cities, count me out. What's a sanctuary city?
A city that protects itself from our federal immigration.
He kind of giving the alley-hoop.
Are there sanctuary cities and states in this country?
Yes, there are.
Look at this chart. There are 200 plus sanctuary counties. There are 12 sanctuary states. 8 million illegal immigrants reside in sanctuary jurisdictions in defiance of federal law. A sanctuary city refuses to turn over to the federal government people that are subject to deportation. Is that correct?
Correct.
They make a choice, these sanctuary states, counties, cities, not to cooperate with federal officials, and the laws have been on the book long before Donald Trump, right?
Correct.
Do you think it would be good for the country to abolish sanctuary cities and states?
I do.
Do you believe as long as they exist, it will be a magnet for future immigration, illegal immigration?
Yes, I do.
So if you're a legal immigrant and you can get to one of these sanctuary cities, states,
too.
or towns, you believe you'll never leave. Until you fix this, you're going to...
Yeah, no one must be a Republican because it seemed like they on teams. He given what he would do if he was in her situation right now. He would have a whole PowerPoint and everything. They seem to be working together. So I'm guessing both of them are Republicans. Am I right?
Have illegal immigrant magnets. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Would you urge the Congress to abolish sanctuary cities
Yes, I would, sir.
and sanctuary states?
Thank
When
you.
it comes to the threat level against our
Thank you for the
homeland,
gift.
how would you characterize it right now?
Right now, I would say, sir, that we should have our every effort within the Department of Homeland Security out protecting people 24/7 because we face not just enemies from overseas that threaten our way of life and our American values. The Biden administration let them here. They let them in our borders. They're in our hometowns. They are unvetted. Thousands and thousands of people that are dangerous criminals, gang members, known and
Who's this
suspected
guy?
terrorists.
Who's this guy?
Who's this
He's
guy?
the man that conducted the horrific act down in Austin.
In Austin.
Okay, what country did he come from?
I think Senegal.
Okay, and he was killed in Austin, Texas, right?
He was.
And the shirt said what?
Property of Allah.
Property of Allah. And when you went to his house, you found a what kind of flag?
Iranian flag.
Iranian flag. Wonder how many people are like that here, waiting to pounce. And DHS doesn't have appropriated funds. This is insane. There are more people like this. We obliterated our borders. 1.7 million people came into this country from countries that were designated to be a problem. special interest aliens. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am.
So 1.7 million came from countries that would make you a special interest alien because of the nature of the country. Libya, Nigeria, North Korea, Afghanistan, China, Cuba. Do you know where those 1.7 million people are?
Not all of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they are either. But they let them in. We don't know where they are. They came from countries that are so dicey. We made you a special interest alien if you came from those countries. So we're having a hearing here. I'd like to make ICE more professional. I'd like to make sure if there was a bad shooting, it's documented as such and people pay a price. But I will not apologize to anybody in this room to try to clean up the mess that Biden started and you empowered. We've got to deal with this. We've been invaded. Only God knows how many people are here and what they're up to, and we're not going to stop. We're going to learn, but we're not going to stop because America's under siege, and the idea we're not defunding DHS is insane, criminally insane.
Criminally insane.
Let me start by noting that we have repeatedly said, our ranking member on the Senate Appropriations Committee, Senator Murray, has said that we are more than willing to fund TSA, more than willing to fund the Coast Guard, more than willing to fund FEMA, and that it is the administration that is holding those agencies hostage in order to extract additional funding for ICE and CBP. That is our quite clearly stated position, and I just wanted to recognize that now. Ms. Noem, I want to walk you through an incident that took place in Rhode Island.
Let's go.
We have a courthouse in Rhode Island, our Superior Court. The court had an agreement with your organization not to conduct operations in that courthouse.
Yeah, this should be real good. He said his organization had an agreement with them not to conduct like raids inside that courthouse. And I'm guessing Christie and them did it anyway. This should be good.
Despite that agreement, your officers went in to conduct operations in that courthouse. They went in plain clothes and masked, so maybe they were aware of the agreement, maybe they weren't. Either way, it was unprofessional not to honor the agreement with the court. There is also a court rule against photographing people in the courthouse. They were photographing people in the courthouse. They either didn't know or didn't care about that court rule. Either way, it was unprofessional. They were pursuing an intern and taking photos of this young intern.
Oh yeah, he's serious.
The person supposedly sought. The intern was in high school. The person sought was in his 30s. It shouldn't be too hard to tell the difference. They couldn't. It was unprofessional. A state judge escorted the intern out to his car to take him back to high school. The agents didn't recognize the judge.
Wow.
They operate against the agreement in a courtroom and don't bother to know who the judges are. Again, unprofessional. They followed the judge out to his parked car, which was parked in a spot reserved for judges. Whether or not they already knew he was a judge, it does not take much in terms of powers of deduction to understand that the person getting into a car in a parking spot reserved for judges is probably a judge. Again, unprofessional. Then they threatened to smash his windows and drag him from the car. A judge with a high school intern in the car who's not the guy they're looking for. That kind of escalation seems unprofessional and irresponsible. Then they held the kid for half an hour in another vehicle while they figured out that, in fact, the high school kid was not the 30-plus-year-old.
This is crazy,
person
guys.
that they were supposedly looking for.
I'm with him. How you don't know a judge? You at the courthouse, they jumping in the judge's car in the judge's parking spot. 1 + 1 = 2.
Nobody was hurt, but there was nothing professional about that entire exchange. And I would ask you to send a signal down to your folks to stop that kind of dangerous and unprofessional nonsense, particularly in our courthouses. Let me ask you, why don't you deconflict with local enforcement when you operate?
Our officers do. We welcome cooperation from local law enforcement and want them at the state level, at the local level, to cooperate with us so that we can continue to conduct our federal operations with the safety of the cooperation that comes from those types of agreements.
Deconflicting and cooperating are two different things. They can overlap, but they are two different things. You deconflict when you plan an operation in another law enforcement agency's jurisdiction, like here, the court sheriffs, and let them know what you're going to do. This all could have been headed off if you'd spoken to if your people had spoken to the sheriffs first and said, we're concerned about this guy. Oh no, he's an intern, he's in high school. None of this was necessary if they had bothered to deconflict. So please, send the message down to your people that there's a reason that deconflicting is standard law enforcement practice for, among other things, officer safety. Will you do that?
Yes, sir, but I will tell you that our law enforcement are being doxxed at unprecedented levels. So at times we've run into situations in sanctuary cities or in sanctuary states where notifying that local law enforcement on some of these operations has doxxed them and their families and leaked a law enforcement operation, which puts people's lives in jeopardy. So they absolutely want to work with cooperative local law enforcement. And in that case specifically,
I suspect that there's a big difference
these
between
individuals,
non-cooperation and actual interference with your operations. But I'll reserve that to a question for the record so you can substantiate that. Could you explain this?
That's one,
sir, I'm
a jet.
looking at a
jet
picture
she
of
owned.
an interior, looks like a bedroom.
Of an airplane?
Yes, sir.
You're not familiar with that?
These photos are not accurate. If you're referring to the airplanes that the Department of Homeland Security has purchased and are purchasing, we're using them for long-range command and control aircraft that is dictated in statute by Congress for the Department of Homeland Security to have a plane.
Luxury jet with a bedroom in it?
Yeah, we used a 730.
Let's go. He talking about a luxury bedroom inside a luxury jet. Let's talk about it. Basically they talking about her spending just like $220 million for some commercials on TV. I'm just saying. Yeah, he owned it. Talking about this jet.
I've been on it once, but it is being used by other administration officials, and it is used for command and control flights for the department. The department has found that in purchasing our aircraft, that we will save the taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars.
Does it have a bedroom?
In fact, we spent $1.42 billion on ICE deportation flights last year.
Does it have a bedroom in it?
Does it have a
believe it's being
bedroom in it?
refurbished and not having a bedroom in it. So it is being refurbished.
Man, that dude serious about that bed, but does it have a bedroom in it? Hey, ma'am, well, yeah, but does it have a bedroom? Yeah, we just seen a picture of the bedroom.
What kind of deportee justifies being flown out of the country in a luxury jet with a bedroom and accommodations like this?
There are aircraft being purchased that will be utilized for executive air travel and for deportations.
Well,
if you remember in the
this
past,
was
we
gonna
have
be
used
deportations.
jets of this
Ain't
size.
no way you deport nobody in I ain't gonna lie, in no jet like that. Not with no bed. I'm with him. Not with no bedroom in it, but it got a bedroom in it. You're deporting people on a luxury plane, private jet, with a bedroom in it. Nah, this ain't for no deportations right here. This is misspending, I guess, is what he trying to say, allegedly.
Size in this configuration for deportations in the past. If you remember
This configuration. By this configuration, you mean with
I
a
didn't
bedroom
see the
and
inside
luxury
of them.
accommodations like this
That
you've
plane-
used for deportations. Is that true?
Sir, we have 737s that are being purchased by the department to replace contracts that we have.
Ma'am, y'all just say no. We're not deporting anybody in that particular plane. Give it up every time he asks you. So you deporting people in there? Well, we have new 747 Boeing aircraft that are being created for, but that's not what he asking you. He asking you about the one you already have with the bedroom in it.
On ICE deportations. That's what they're going to be used for. And in fact, the Coast Guard is the only entity within the Department of Homeland Security that has jets at this point in time. They had two G5s that were 20 to 25 years old that are being replaced so that they can continue to serve our Coast Guard and our military
senior
for years
administration
to come.
officials about these aircraft. They've been reported as saying, although they don't want to say publicly this, but individuals described as senior administration officials have described these airplane purchases as the world's worst deal and an abuse of federal funds. Can you tell me what the Republicans on this committee who voted for what I call the billionaires bill that gave you the money to buy these jets knew about your plans to acquire luxury jets?
So the big beautiful bill supplied that private jet with the bedroom in it is what he's saying. Okay, let's go.
And they voted for that money.
The dollars for these airplanes was appropriated by Congress. In fact, it's mandated from Congress and rules that you've given us that
Congress gave you the money to buy these big old jets with bedrooms in them. Okay, all right, we getting there, says Christy Nome.
we need to have a long-range command and control aircraft that will seat up to 17 people in the Department of Homeland Security for national security purposes. We are complying with the law. Those planes are being refurbished and will be utilized for that, and they'll be utilized by members of the administration and other components.
First,
they will also cut our costs, sir, by almost 40%. We are saving the taxpayer 40% by purchasing our own aircraft and operating.
She felt like he was trying to play her. She gonna get it all now. He keep on saying my one man. Nah, she like, I'm finna get my point across. He just tried to make her look bad about the jets with the bedroom in them.
Them rather than being susceptible to the contracts that they have today.
We have an extra 2 minutes to fill in the filibuster there.
I'll give you 30 seconds beyond the 44 seconds you got now.
Truthfully answer a question for the record about your role in stopping the civil rights investigation into the Minnesota shootings.
Sir, I don't know what you're talking about. I did not stop any investigations.
Hit her with a tough question. Look at her face.
Investigation
like, oh my God, really?
Into the Minnesota shootings.
What?
Sir, I don't know what you're talking about. I did not stop any investigations whatsoever.
Will you testify truthfully if you get a QFR?
Yes, I testify truthfully. I did not
and will
stop.
you testify in the District of Columbia Federal Court contempt proceeding?
Sir, I do not know what you're referencing, and I would hope for some context.
The Federal District Court contempt proceeding related to the
he had a trick up his sleeve.
Deportation contrary to a court order of individuals to Venezuela. Will you testify in that proceeding?
Sir, I think that you're referencing something that I have a gag order to, but I can certainly follow up with you.
Thank you.
Senator Durbin.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Secretary Nome, the nation has watched horrified as immigration agents killed Renee Good, Alex Preddy. In Chicago, one of your Border Patrol agents shot Marimor Martinez 5 times after ramming her car. You and your agency rushed to brand these victims as, quote, domestic terrorists. We have ample video evidence and eyewitness testimony proving you are wrong. Your statements cause immeasurable pain to these families. Let me give you an opportunity to
If you have not, man, double tap that screen. That's how you hit the like button, man. It also helps out the channel. Make sure you double tap that screen. That's how you hit the like button. Or click the 3 dots, hit that thumbs up. Most definitely subscribe to the channel if you're new. This is Everything News, and right now we're looking at the testimony that Christy Nome gave before Congress a little bit earlier today, man. Make sure y'all getting those likes up. Double tap that screen if you're on a mobile device. Or click the 3 dots, hit that thumbs up.
the right thing. Do you retract these statements identifying these individuals as domestic terrorists?
You know, Senator Dermott, when we have these situations happen, we always offer our condolences to those families. And I offer mine as well. These are tragic situations, and I can't imagine what these families go through in losing a loved one. What I will say is we always work to provide the American people with as much information as possible, that we're relying on reports from the ground and from agents that are there and working to be transparent, and we'll continue to do all that we can to provide the accurate information and the facts to people as we can.
Where did you get that information? In a recent hearing before the HISGAC committee, CBP and ICE officials testified under oath that their agencies did not inform you that Preddy was a domestic terrorist during that hearing, stated during that hearing.
I was getting reports from the ground from agents at the scene, and I would say that it was a chaotic scene, as you've seen in Minneapolis and St. Paul, as immigration enforcement has gone forward, and we've worked at targeting the worst of the worst, that many times our agents have been faced with violent
victims of that violence domestic terrorists as a way to calm the scene?
These violent terrorists have put them in a situation where...
So he's questioning over the unaliving of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, guys, you know, and her decision to call them terror with the "ist" at the end. You know, basically she's kind of deflecting at the same time, but he keeps on asking her the hard-nosed question.
It's unprecedented what these agents have faced. So that situation on the ground that day was chaotic. And it was something that they were transpiring and sharing information
them as
with
domestic
us.
Terrorists. Can you explain why you decided to brand these victims that we all saw on video, who were out protesting the activities of your agency and were killed as a result of it? How did you think that calling them domestic terrorists at that scene was somehow going to calm the situation?
You know, Senator, we are working in those situations where there's a tragic loss of life, and that there is something that our agents are involved in, that we continue to deliver information.
Is it so hard to say you were wrong?
We continue, as these investigations continue to go, we will provide, I absolutely strive to provide factual information, and we'll continue to do that.
And when you fail, do you admit it publicly?
Absolutely. We always know that
prayers for their families, most definitely, guys. Alex Preddy and Renee Good. Prayers to their family and anybody else that's been lost, you know, wrongfully during this situation with the mass deportation, man. Prayers for their families, guys. That was most definitely tragic.
That we will...
Oh, we got protesters.
Absolutely. We always know that there's room for improvement. That we will...
Y'all hear her back there?
Steve Porter Jr. and Dr. Linda Davis. They were Americans killed by ICE. You are not giving their family any justice. Say their names. Their Black Lives Matter. Their Black Lives Matter. Their Black Lives Matter.
Oh yeah, they're like, what is going on? Oh my God.
Thank you, Mr.
And she was sitting right next to
I want to turn to another incident where DHS is...
They got that under control fast.
Geraldo Luna Campos died in an immigration detention. DHS claimed he killed himself, but an independent medical examiner found his death was a homicide. Witnesses stated Mr. Campos was strangled by the guards at a detention facility. Instead of investigating this death, your department tried to deport the witnesses to the crime. It took a judge intervening to ensure the fact that these witnesses remain in the country for investigation. Secretary Noem, who ordered those witnesses be deported?
Sir, I can't speak to the details of that case as it continues to be investigated, but I do know that within our detention facilities, we have the highest federal standards of any detention facilities compared to state or other local facilities that may detain.
There was an effort to deport the witnesses?
Sir, I'm not aware of that, and I will continue to look at that. Whenever there is an incident where we have someone who works for DHS that has done something wrong, there is always an evaluation, an investigation, and there is consequences for that. So we will continue to do that investigation and make sure that the right thing is done.
Who's doing the investigation?
There are internal investigations within.
Investigation. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. ICE and...
Outside independent agency that's part of that investigation?
Not that I'm aware of at this point in time, but I may not be able to speak to the details of this case because I'm not fully informed on it.
The man lost his life. Just last week, the Republican-appointed chief federal judge in Minnesota identified over 200 court orders that ICE officials had violated in the last 2 months. He wrote, quote, "The court is not aware of another occasion in the history of the United States in which a federal court has had to threaten contempt again and again and again to force the U.S. government to comply with court orders." In a sworn declaration, the Trump Justice Department itself acknowledged that your agency has violated court orders more than 50 times in recent weeks in one state, New Jersey. Secretary Noem, is DHS required to follow federal court orders?
Yes, sir, and we do comply with federal court orders.
How do you explain that your agency has repeatedly violated court orders, as your own administration has admitted?
Sir, we follow court orders, and when they apply and when the jurisdiction and decision is applicable to a federal agency like ours.
I'm sorry, would you clarify what you ended that with?
We follow court orders when they are given to us. Federal court orders we follow, absolutely.
So these judges are wrong?
No, I'm not saying that they're wrong, and I can't speak specifically to that statement that was given.
Let me ask you about DACA. Are you familiar with the program?
No.
Do you understand the people that are covered and protected by DACA have to go through a background check, which includes a criminal check?
Can we get 30 more likes, guys?
Yes,
30 more people.
Yes.
Double tap that screen.
Last week, your agency informed us that last year ICE arrested 261 DACA holders and deported 86 of them. We learned about a DACA recipient who'd lived in this country for decades, was arrested by ICE at her green card appointment. In tears, she hugged her daughter goodbye. She was deported to Mexico within 24 hours. Madam Secretary, why have you deported dozens of DACA holders who had to comply with a criminal background check to be eligible for DACA?
Sir, we follow all laws as applicable to the Department of Homeland Security,
Why did you
how we
deport
handle
them?
detainment and deportations.
Why did you deport them?
I don't know the details of that specific case you just read, but I'll look into it,
She
sir.
was finna say she wasn't gonna
ensure
answer
We
that.
follow the law that applies to our department and who we detain and who we deport back to their home
You
countries.
clearly violated the law if that is the case. Let me ask you about the fact that 85% of the 400,000 immigrants that ICE arrested during President Trump's first term in office had no violent criminal record. The president said over and over at his rallies, "We're going after the worst of the worst, the terrorists, the murderers, the rapists." And then it turns out that 85% of the people you've gone after have no criminal history whatsoever. How do you explain that?
Sir, when you talk about violent crimes, what you're saying, the crimes that don't matter, that you aren't counting, are ones that affect American families every single day. You're not counting DUIs, you're not counting embezzlements, you're not counting theft, and you're not counting the other crimes against people and drug trafficking and proliferating that. So if you don't count those as crimes, that these individuals and impacting families in this country,
They are counted, and they calculated
Those-
that 14% of those that
those
you
are not
arrested-
counted in
Now
your
she go deflecting again. She know good as well what he asking her.
14%. If you were counting crimes that these individual illegal aliens in this country have committed, it would be well over 65 to 70% of the individuals that are detained today have those crimes on their record, besides the crime of being in this country
Going to back that
illegally.
up with some information for me?
Absolutely, I will.
I certainly hope you will. How does taking a father from a child dying of cancer qualify? Where would that be? Is that a violent crime?
I don't know what you're speaking or
I'll tell you
referencing
exactly
to.
what I'm speaking of. Ruben Torres, 2 weeks ago, buried his daughter Ophelia. When he was arrested at the Home Depot in Norwich, Illinois, he said to those who, your agents, "Please let me go home. My daughter is dying of cancer. I would like to be with her in her last days of her life." They said no. They arrested him and deported him for 2 weeks. Finally, he returned for a court hearing. His daughter lived to see that hearing where the court said he was treated unfairly by your agency, and she died 3 days later. I was at her memorial service. Is that really necessary? Was he a violent criminal?
Sir, we enforce the law. The laws that are passed by
What
this
law?
body and signed into statute on the process for individuals that are in this country illegally, that have final removal orders, and the process given in immigration law. We continue to follow that, and if you don't like the law, I would suggest you change the law, but that is what we do
We tried
every
to
single
change the
day, is
law.
go out there.
We tried to change
She
it.
persists that going by the law. If you don't like the law, I suggest you try to change it. That's why they trying to change it and get you fired.
With comprehensive immigration reform. and it was stopped by the Republican House of Representatives.
Our job at the department is to follow the law and make sure that we are a nation of laws, because a nation that doesn't follow the law is no nation at all.
I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you, Mr.
He like,
Chairman.
she's so full of
Secretary
it.
Noem, as Secretary of Homeland Security, you oversaw Operation Metro Search, is that correct?
Yes, as secretary, I oversee ICE and CBP and HSI officers that were there doing their work.
3,000 ICE agents, border control to Minnesota, outnumbering our 10 Metro Police departments, outnumbering by 3 to 1 the number of sworn police officers in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Is that correct?
We were working to do targeted operations against criminal, illegal aliens, and we needed to do that in a safe manner to make sure that we could ensure the safety of our law enforcement officers.
Two of my constituents, Renee Good and Alex Preddy,
Here
were
we
killed.
go. I told y'all.
They should be alive today. In fact, in 1 month in the city of Minneapolis, when you look at the 3 fatalities,
Renee
that
Good
were
and Alex
results of
Preddy.
shooting, 2 of 3 were committed by federal agents. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
So your agents, not only their actions resulted in the deaths of 2 innocent American citizens, but they repeatedly violated my constituents' First Amendment rights to assemble. You say you believe in the Second Amendment right to bear arms, but Alex Preddy was criticized repeatedly by officials in the administration for having a lawful permit to carry and having a gun. Your agents violated the Fourth Amendment rights of my constituents by ramming through doors of innocent people's homes, innocent citizens' home, without any kind of a warrant, and violated the Fifth Amendment right to due process. So as I've shared with my colleagues, if you believe in federalism,
Christy like, what? I don't know what you're talking about, lady.
in freedom and in liberty, you should be horrified by what the Department of Homeland Security did in Minnesota. So my first question is, having spoken to Mr. Homan, what is the exact number of DHS agents still in Minnesota?
Well, I believe that there is still close to 650 there, counting the investigators that are there, working to get to the bottom of the unprecedented fraud that has been found in the Medicaid
Was
funding.
5-year-old Liam involved in that fraud? As you know, I am all in on prosecuting fraud. I put in place the U.S. attorney who exposed the fraud under the Biden administration and brought the bulk of the prosecutions, and also recommended to Mr. Blanche that Joe Thompson be the acting U.S. attorney who led those prosecutions and now has left the office because the Department of Justice asked him and many others to investigate Renee Good's wife instead of doing their jobs doing fraud. So what I want to know is, when are you going to get down to the original footprint as promised to us?
We're continuing to work at that, although those investigators will continue to stay there to get to the bottom of that fraud, to make sure that those vulnerable people that rely on those programs actually get services from those federal dollars that are spent, that it's not stolen by criminals and used by individuals to enrich themselves and send it out of the country.
Secretary Chung-Li Tao, are you aware that agents bashed in the door of a U.S. citizen, a Hmong elder with no criminal record?
I can't speak to the specifics of that
Did you
case.
see the photos of that man being dragged out of his house in Crocs and in his underwear?
I seen it.
Yes, I did.
Do you believe that he was involved in fraud?
I do not know where that status of that investigation is.
Are you aware that he is a son of a beloved nurse that treated our soldiers in Vietnam?
I believe that we have laws in this country that need to be enforced and need to be applied
Your
equally to
agents,
everyone.
speaking of enforcing the laws and following the laws, did they have a judicial warrant when they rammed through an American citizen's
There
door?
go them tough questions again. Let's go.
Our law enforcement officers follow the same protocols and procedures that all law enforcement do.
Are
as
you
to how
aware
they
that he
move
tried
forward.
to show his identification to show that he was American citizen and they didn't want to see it?
Again, these officers conduct themselves in processes. If something was done inaccurately, then certainly we will make sure that we correct it and rectify it in the
Are
future.
you aware that the person they were looking for was in prison and had been in prison for years? His
Yes,
name
I
is
am.
Lou
That's
Nguyen?
Yes, we do targeted operations going after and
Do
looking
you
for.
agree that it is unacceptable for your
Look at
agents
her.
to ram into someone's door and drag someone out in their
As soon as Christy go to trying to explain, she hit her with another one. Look at Christy's face. She ain't liking this. The other lady, she's smirking, she's smiling. She know exactly what she doing, guys. Yeah, she hitting her with those tough questions. Soon as she start answering and the answer ain't what she want to hear, she hit her with another one. Let's go.
underwear and below zero temperatures when they have the wrong guy?
Our officers conduct targeted operations and utilize the law processes that are given to them and the tools.
You think that's wrong?
They needed to identify that individual and
They couldn't identify him by looking at his identification. Instead, they had to drag him out, throw him in a car, and drive him around for an hour. How about pulling off-duty police officers? Madam Secretary, every single one of whom made clear who they were. They were people of color, off-duty police officers. In Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, the chief described how one off-duty officer, someone of color, a U.S. citizen, was stopped and confronted by ICE agents with their guns drawn, demanding her proof of citizenship. As Chief Bruley said, I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident, but the other chief said it had happened to their own officers. Why were these officers stopped?
We have thousands of law enforcement operations that we do every single day.
Do you think they were stopped because they were
murderers
people of color?
and
Were they
rapists
racially
and drug
profiled?
traffickers
Ms.
off
Nell.
our streets? When I look at these American families that have been victimized,
Now Christy
by
trying to get up
criminals
on
that
the
we
cross.
have removed from cities and from communities, I'm grateful for the work that our ICE officers do. And by your
Are
only
you
focusing,
defending stopping
I would like to
off-duty
hear you
police
talk about
officers
some of the
of color
operations
and
that we've done
dragging a
to
Hmong
bring
elder
people
out of
to
his
justice.
home?
When you only talk
We
about
got
these
action,
situations
guys.
like this that we are conducting, and you don't talk about the good work that they do to protect people from being victimized by people that are in this country that want to conduct violent crimes against them or take advantage of them. The laws need
Yeah,
to.
Christy said she getting it all out this time. Forget what this lady talking about. Keep cutting her off. Yeah, she gonna talk right through it. Yeah, we got action, guys.
Apply to everyone, and we're out there enforcing the law.
I am a former prosecutor,
Context is
Ms. Noem, and
incredibly
I
important.
have always
in every
worked with our
situation.
police well, but that's not what was going. These ICE agents were not following police procedures. After the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, when I spoke to Alex's parents, they told me that you calling him a domestic terrorist, this was directly from them, the day after he was killed, a nurse in our VA, Alex, one of the most hurtful things they could ever imagine was said by you about their son. Do you have anything you want to say to Alex Preddy's parents?
We were relying in the hours after that incident that was so horrific on information we were getting from the ground from our agents.
If you had
But I would
anything you wanted to say to the
but I would
parents
say-
or to the
parents.
family
That's
of
what
Let's
Renee
go.
Good
right
after
now,
Let's go.
you called them domestic
Can't
terrorists.
even imagine what they have gone through in the loss of their son and the loss of their family members.
But
It's
how about
absolutely
specifically
tragic.
calling them
And I
domestic
send
terrorists
them-
without any evidence of that?
They gonna make her hate she ever said that, boy. They hit her every time with that. But you call them domestic terror with the "is" at the end. Where were you thinking? That was the worst mistake of her career, because they ain't letting that go.
Sir, ma'am, I did not call him a domestic terrorist. I said it appeared to be an incident of.
I think the parents saw it for what it was. After the killings, the federal government refused to cooperate with state law enforcement. Agents blocked Minnesota investigators from accessing the scene. I know because I got directly calls from the mayor. I tried to call the DOJ.
Can we get over 200 on that like, guys? Double tap the screen if you have not. Simply, if you're on a mobile device, you can double tap your screen or click the three dots, hit that thumbs up, guys. Most definitely subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hitting the like button helps the channel. That's why I asked y'all to do it, man. Double tap that screen. If you're on the mobile device, or click the three dots, hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. This is the questioning of Kristi Noem, Secretary Kristi Noem. And basically this lady is giving her the blues right now about calling Alex Preddy and Renee Good terror with the "is" at the end, guys. Yeah, she is most definitely standing on business.
I tried to do everything I could because they were very worried about what was going to happen immediately, especially after Alex Preddy's death. Do you think that blocking local law enforcement from the scene of a shooting makes people safer? Yes or no?
Actually, our HSI law enforcement officers risked their lives on that scene, preserving evidence and keeping the violent rioters away from the evidence so it
What
could be
life was
preserved for
lost
the
at that
investigation.
scene, Secretary? No.
Huh? Yes, I
It was
understand that.
Alex Preddy's life
And
that was
after it
lost.
became very,
I believe it is in the interest of justice to have a full and transparent investigation.
yes, the investigation's being led by FBI and internal investigations as well into this incident.
Will you commit to reversing the decision to cooperate with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, an agency of seasoned professionals that the agents worked with directly, FBI agents worked with directly to investigate after the shooting assassination of Speaker Hortman, after the killing of those two little kids in that church with the bullets going through those stained glass windows? In both incidents, our federal and local law enforcement worked together and are working together in those investigations. But they have been blocked, the locals have, from being part of this. Why is that, Ms. No?
The FBI is leading this investigation, and I would leave that question for them to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you to the families who are here who have lost loved ones, both who lost loved ones to violence perpetrated by immigrants, but also to those who have been seriously injured by ICE agents, and to those watching who have had family members killed by ICE agents. Madam Secretary, I want to ask you about one of the first claims you made in the immediate aftermath of the shooting of Renee Good and Alex Preddy.
Gonna hunt her for the rest of her life,
both,
guys.
I think within hours of engaging in domestic terrorism. You've testified earlier that you did so based on preliminary field reports. Who told you that these two victims were engaged in domestic terrorism? Where'd you get that information from?
I've said before, and will repeat again for you, Senator, that those reports were coming from on the ground agents that were there. It was a chaotic scene.
So you spoke to agents on the ground who told you they were domestic terrorism?
Yes.
Domestic terrorists?
My team was working with me, talking to those agents on the ground to relay as much information as possible that we could to the American people.
Your team told you that people in Minneapolis said they were domestic terrorists. Did they tell you whether they had any basis for that claim within either minutes or hours of the shooting of Alex Preddy and Renee Good?
Sir, if you look back at the day of January 24th, there was a press conference earlier in the day, and then I held one hours later.
So I'm asking
and we were also
asking you, did you determine whether there was any basis for the sensational claim, a claim that proved to be utterly false, that these two victims were engaged in domestic terrorism?
Once again, same argument. They're never gonna let that go. Worst mistake of her career.
There is an investigation ongoing. The FBI is leading that. There's also internal investigations that are ongoing.
I'm asking you.
We'll continue to bring the facts forward.
Excuse me, Madam Secretary. I'm asking about your statements in the immediate aftermath of these shootings. Your statements based on completely unvetted information that if it was even provided to you proved to be utterly false, that you were content to tell the whole country. Do you have any concern about misleading the whole country? Don't you think in the immediate aftermath of a shooting that you should provide only vetted information to the public? How do you imagine you're going to gain the trust of the American people if you're pushing out false information about the shooting of American citizens?
I work every day to get factual information to the American
you
people.
Didn't on that day. You didn't on the day that Alex Preddy was shot, and you certainly didn't on the day Renee Good was shot. You weren't getting out good information. You were making a spurious claim that has caused endless injury to the victims' families on the basis of God knows what. And then your agency doesn't allow local investigators. They essentially push away independent investigators. How is the public to have any confidence in investigations done of excessive use by ICE agents if, number one, you make immediate and false statements about the victims, and number two, you don't let any independent agency conduct an investigation? How is the public supposed to believe anything your agency says or finds?
These investigations are being done in the same way that they always are.
No, they're
And
not
the
being done-
FBI is
they're not
leading, there
being done
are
the way they
internal
always were,
investigations
because
as
you're not
well.
allowing-
In these situations,
you're not
ICE has an
allowing-
internal
excuse me,
investigation.
excuse me.
Well, would you like to hear about the investigations that are
Excuse me,
ongoing?
you're not allowing state and local investigators to
That is
participate.
that is not my decision.
And furthermore,
The Department of Justice and the
furthermore-
FBI decides how
furthermore, they're not
investigations
being
go.
conducted in the way investigations are always done. Are you telling me that in the case of Miramar Martinez, that having an agent involved in shooting her, drive a vehicle that was used to ram into her vehicle, drive that vehicle, that evidence away from the scene and 1,000 miles to Maine, you're telling me that's the way investigations are always done? That you let an agent involved in an officer-involved shooting drive a key piece of evidence 1,000 miles away? Is that how you conduct investigations at DHS?
I'm not conducting these investigations into these. The Department of Justice with the
But will you
FBI is
take-
conducting
will you
those
take some
investigations, and
responsibility
CBP
for
and
how investigations are conducted
We
when
follow-
when agents under your control are engaged in the
the
use of
investigations. The investigations into our officers have
I
not
know
changed
there's a
under
great
my
desire
leadership or the president's
to point the
leadership than what
finger,
they
oh,
were
that's-
under the previous
That's being done
administration.
by Pam Bondi's Justice Department. I'm not responsible for
No,
that
our internal
malpractice,
investigations are
that's-
following the same
that's
policies
the orders
that they
of
always
Stephen
have.
Miller, so I'm not responsible
No.
for that either. But you are responsible. You are responsible. You could insist on independent investigations, but you're not. You could wait until there's good information after a shooting before you go to the press and the public and mislead them. Let me ask you about a different subject, and that is the waste of resources at your agency, the continued allegations of favoritism and contracting, and let me in particular focus on the $220 million ad campaign, many of which feature you very prominently. An ad campaign that is more expensive than the whole budget for One Fight After Another or any Hollywood blockbuster film. So let me ask you, you said that the president approved this vast expenditure on a media campaign that largely profiles you. How
That 220 million.
do you know that? Did he approve it to you personally?
This media campaign was critical in telling the world
I'm
and this
asking about the
country
president's
that
approval.
we are enforcing the laws in the
I-
United States of
you
America.
testified
That if you're in
earlier
your
in answer
country
to-
illegally,
You testified
then you
earlier in
should
answer to
leave
Senator Kennedy's question.
now,
The president
or if you want the chance to come back to the United
So my
States
question is,
someday in
how
the
do you
future.
know-
If you don't, you will be
How do you
detained
know-
and
excuse
will be
me?
removed and never get the
Madam
chance to come
Secretary,
back.
how
It's
do
been
you know that
extremely
the
effective
president-
in sending the
Excuse me, Madam
message.
Secretary, how do you know the president approved of this $220 million contract?
We had conversations and worked with OMB
So you
to
had
make sure that
conversations
the
directly
funding
with the
was there.
president? Excuse me, I just want to clarify. So you had conversations directly with the president where he approved this $220 million ad campaign that significantly features you? Is that
Sir,
correct?
this campaign was talking about making sure that people knew that our laws were being enforced.
Again, I want to make sure that
We
we're not
continue to go through the
misunderstanding each
process.
other.
It was a competitive
president
bid
approved-
campaign.
excuse
I
me.
had nothing of choosing.
Excuse me, so the president approved this expenditure?
Sir, I've been explaining this to you, how it, when it was a competitive process,
Well,
the
okay,
career
you say it was
officials at the
competitive process.
Department of
I guess
Homeland Security
you don't want to
chose the
confirm the
best.
president's role in this, and I can understand why. But you say it was a competitive process, and yet this contract went to a company that didn't exist 2 weeks before they got the contract.
Sir, I can't speak
And-
to that. I don't
No,
know the name of that company.
You're
I'm sure
saying you
it
can't
is-
speak to it, but let me ask you this. Are you saying it's just a coincidence? It's just a happy circumstance? It's just a
saying that-
a fortuitous event that 143 million of that went to a subcontractor that you worked with extensively as governor in South Dakota or during your campaign, that is just coincidental?
The same process was followed for this
So it's-
media
so it-
contract than any
so-
other
so
media
just a-
contract that's
just-
happened.
just a
With
coincidence
the
then.
Department of Homeland
And-
Security, I had
and-
nothing to do and no political,
You
had
had nothing
any,
to do with it. Nothing
no
to do with it. So
choosing of who the
just a
contractors.
coincidence.
And we don't
Excuse
have a
me.
legal process for
Just a
weighing in on
coincidence
subcontractors.
also-
It doesn't exist.
Excuse me, just a coincidence also then that this $143
To ask
million
questions, you should want
excuse me,
the answers.
I'm trying to ask a question.
You're trying to
So
say that this
just-
was a political
just-
decision, and it
just
absolutely
another-
was not.
I'm just asking you. So it's just a coincidence that a $143 million subcontract went to the husband of your press person, also someone that Corey Lewandowski, one of your special government employees, worked with extensively. So that was all a coincidence, right? Because you had no knowledge of this, no
Media
involvement.
company that
and none of
gets
the
the
people around you
contract,
had any involvement.
the ability to
So
choose the
taxpayers should just
subcontractors. We
assume this
don't
is
weigh
a
in
coincidence.
on who subcontractors are. There's not a legal process for us to determine what subcontractors are a part of a contract
So can
that
you-
goes out
can
for a
you
competitive
state-
bid.
can you state
And
for the
only
record-
career employees at
excuse me,
DHS were in on the
Can you
choosing of
state
those
for the
media
record
contracts.
then that neither you nor Mr. Lewandowski nor your press secretary married to the husband of the person who got this $143 million
We were not a part of the
Can you state for the
decision-making.
record that none of you that I've just described had any role, played any part, made any communication with any government agency that was involved in deciding who would get that contract?
To the best of my knowledge, none of us were involved in deciding who got those contracts for the
Undecided,
media.
but
said
were
to
any
bet-
of you
to the best of
involved
her
in
knowledge.
advocating, communicating, or expressing a
Not to my
preference
knowledge,
in any
Senator,
way
not to
with
my
the government?
knowledge,
Excuse
Senator.
me, let me just finish the question. Were any of you involved in any way in communicating, expressing a preference in any form, manner, verbal, written, with any government agency that was involved in the contracting
The
process?
same process was followed for that contract that is
You're
for
not
all
answering
media
my question.
contracts that have gone forward. To my knowledge,
or no?
there was no involvement whatsoever of anybody that is on the political appointee side of this position and that media contract.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
All right. So that thingy right there was like 7 hours, 6 hours long. We just needed the key points from it. But you seen they were grilling her basically over her handling of the Renee
Enforcement
Good
operation,
and the
which puts
Alex
people's
Preddy
lives-
situation, man. They want Christina Nome up out of there. The Dems has said it many times, guys. But yeah, that was a very good, question and answer right there. A lot of deflecting going on. But hey, they didn't shy from hitting her with those tough questions. All right. So we got more going on, as far as y'all know, we battling right now with Iran, guys. Earlier I showed y'all a piece of what Trump had to say. Now I'm gonna show y'all the rest, guys. This is Trump speaking on Iran.
Bad people, and the leader of the pack is gone. And as you know, 49 people were taken out in the first hit, and I guess there was another hit today on the new leadership, and it looks like that was pretty substantial also. So they're getting hit very hard, and we'll see what happens. A lot of people are coming forward. A lot of the people you would least suspect want to quit. They want to have immunity. They're asking for immunity, and probably at some point they'll be dropping, as you would say, laying down their guns. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, we're just continuing to go forward. Our military is the #1 in the world by far, and we are. Everything's big in my book. Venezuela was big. This is big. The original hit, Midnight Hammer, was big. Everything you view is big, but it's not considered very big by some standards.
Ribs real big, car big, real big, everything big. Trump say everything big. Whatever he do is gonna be the best. It's gonna be the biggest that America's ever seen. Let's go.
By some of our standards, we have a military like no other military that's ever been built.
So Mr. President, what's the worst case scenario that you have planned for in Iran?
Well, I don't know if there's a worst case. We have them very much beaten militarily from the military standpoint. They're still lobbing some missiles. At some point, they won't even be able to do that because we're hitting all of their carriers. We're hitting all of their missile stock. They built up all these missiles over the last few years. They had a lot of them. They've shot a lot of them, and we're knocking out a lot. I guess the worst case would be we do this, and then somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person, right? That could happen. We don't want that to happen. That would probably be the worst. You go through this, and then in 5 years you realize you put somebody in who is no better. So we'd like to see somebody in there that's going to bring it back for the people. And we'll see what happens with the people.
Shout out to all my people just getting her. Make sure y'all double tap that screen. If you're on a mobile device, double tap that screen. What's up, Miss T? Since you say, my hair don't never speak to me. Hey, Miss T.
You know, they have their chance, and we've said, don't do it yet. If you're going to go out and protest, don't do it yet. It's very dangerous out there. A lot of bombs are being dropped. But I would say that would be about the worst.
Do you have someone in mind right now? Because you said all the people you did have in mind have been taken out. What do you think?
Well, most of the people we had in mind are dead. So, you know, we had some in mind from that group that is dead. And now we have another group. They may be dead also, based on reports. So I guess you have a third wave coming in. Pretty soon we're not going to know anybody. But we have, I mean, Venezuela was so incredible because we did the attack and we kept government totally intact. And we have Delcy, who's been very good. We have the whole chain of command, and they've been, you know, look, the relationship's been great. We've taken out 100 million barrels of oil already, and a big part of that goes to them, and a big part goes to us. And it's been great. We paid for the war many times over, and we're going to be running the oil.
Thank you, Miss T. I appreciate it. Say whatever, but here.
And Venezuela is going to make more money than they ever made, and that's great for the people. The relationship has been great. It's been seamless. Nobody's actually ever seen anything like it. If you look at Iraq.
And also, thanks for the gift, Miss Fat.
Where very stupidly everybody was fired. The generals were fired, the military was fired, the police were fired, the fire departments were fired, and all of the government workers were fired. So after, you know, people would call, they had no idea. And by the way, ISIS was formed. That's where ISIS came from.
Do y'all think that this is more personal for Trump, seeing that they had that money on his head? You know, Iran had millions of dollars on Trump's head. According to Trump in the media, during his first term and while he was trying to get elected again, guys. So I feel like this situation is kind of personal for Trump. You know, that's why he's going so hard on Iran. Remember, in his first term, he sent strikes over there and basically unalived one of their leaders, Soleimani, of the army, of the military over there. Soleimani. He took Soleimani out, and oh, they didn't like that. They was in the streets. They was burning flags. They vowed revenge, and then Trump got money put on his head where they basically trying to take him out the game. So this could be more personal than political for Trump. What y'all think?
All of the fired people, we don't believe in that. So we'll see what happens, but first we have to finish off the military.
What do you think? Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, is he an option at all in your mind?
I guess he is. Some people like him.
Cupcake.
We haven't been thinking about too much about that. It would seem to me that somebody from within maybe would be more appropriate. I've said that. He looks like a very nice person, but it would seem to me that somebody that's there, that's currently popular, if there's such a person. But we have people like that. We have people that were more moderate. You know, these were radical lunatics, and you know what they get? They get nothing. All they do is kill people.
What exactly was the end of it?
You've asked, so not your turn.
Well, what you say, if it's personal, then why wouldn't he be attacking the people that crowdfunded the money, which wasn't the government or the cleric? What you're saying it makes perfect sense. Somebody try to take you out, of course you try to take them back out. What are you talking about? What you just typed didn't make no sense. But to each their own. You have your opinion, I have mine. It most definitely makes sense for Trump to want revenge on people who are trying to take him out the game. Matters about the people who put up the money, the crowd fund. Yeah, he got the whole crowd. He over there blowing up everything. He got the whole crowd. What are you talking about? Where you say he got the greatest amount of revenge going on right now, in my opinion, allegedly. I'm just saying, you ain't no righter than me, sir. You ain't no righter than me.
Not your turn, please.
Mr. President, you've been taking the heat off the Europeans to present to the FEMA, which they call on the allies to also help you.
What does that mean?
Well, you have to ask Mark Rutte if he said not as part of NATO, but he would be helpful to you in this.
Well, some of the European nations have been helpful and some haven't. And I'm, very surprised. Germany's been great. He's been terrific. Others have been very good, terrific. I think that The head of NATO, Mark, is fantastic, okay? Mark Rutte. I think he's fantastic. But some of the European, like Spain, has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain. Spain, first of all, it started when every European nation, at my request, paid 5%, which they should be doing. And everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it, but we don't have to. But they were unfriendly, and so I told them that we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they would have agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain. And I'm not, by the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, the lease, okay, he made it, for whatever reason, he made a lease of the island. Somebody came and took it away from him. And it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we were very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Mr. President, what's your expectation towards Germany? What can Germany do and what should Germany do to help you in this region?
Well, I think they're doing it. I mean, they're letting us land in certain areas, and we appreciate it, and they're just making it comfortable. We're not asking them to put boots on the ground or anything. I mean, we're just, they're a respected country. I have a very good relationship with the country. We have, in particular now, with this leader, with this new leader. I think he's an excellent leader. I had my differences with Angela. I said, you're hurting your country with immigration, and you're hurting your country with energy. And we have a man sitting on my right that is, I think, pretty much the opposite of her on energy and the opposite on immigration. And I think he's doing very well.
Mr. President, commercial air travel right now is severely restricted in the Middle East, and thousands of Americans are stranded. Why wasn't there an evacuation plan, and will you send planes to get people out?
Well, because it happened all very quickly. We thought, and I thought maybe more so than most, I could ask Marco, but I thought we were going to have a situation where we were going to be attacked. They were getting ready to attack Israel. They were getting ready to attack others. You're seeing that right now. And a lot of those missiles that are hitting in, those are stationary. Those were aimed there for a long period of time at these other countries. So I think I was right about that. We attacked first. And if we didn't, it could have been, look, we're really decimating them. They're being decimated. And if we didn't, and by the way, we have massive amounts of ammunition. We have the high end. A lot of it was given away stupidly by Biden, very stupidly, for free. And I'm all for Ukraine, but they gave away a lot. As you know, when I give away ammunition, everybody pays for it. The European Union's paying for it. Then they can do what they want with it, but they are giving it, let's say, to Ukraine, and it's okay. But we gave away a lot of high end, but we have plenty. But we have unlimited middle and upper ammunition, which is really what we're using in this war. And we have really an unlimited supply. We also have a lot of the very high end stored in different countries throughout the world. We're literally storing it there, which is actually something that I insisted on in my first term. I rebuilt the military in my first term. The military is great. Unbelievable amount of ammunition, or munitions, as they say, we've given away to, the Wall Street Journal incorrectly covered the story when they said that it was given away to the Middle East. Not to the Middle East, it was given away to Ukraine. Very little was given to the Middle East. Middle East would buy a lot, and some of the nations, because they're rich, they have a lot, but it was given away to Ukraine. And it just should have been done. Look, it's a war that should have never happened. If I were president, that war would have never happened. but we have a tremendous amount of ammunition at the upper level, middle and upper level.
There's a lot of people saying if they were president, we wouldn't be in Iran right now.
All of which is really powerful stuff.
The President of the United States, they're taking questions from reporters within the pool in the Oval.
All right, so that's what Trump had to say on what's going on in Iran right now, as he talked to the leader of Germany, guys. But, somebody who always gets into it and makes it sound real good, Caroline Levit, guys, she most definitely gave briefings on what's going on in Iran today as well. Let's see what she had to say.
Under the leadership of President Donald J. Trump, the rogue Iranian terrorist regime is being absolutely crushed. 47 years of tolerating and enabling the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism are over. Iran's murderous terrorist leaders are paying for their crimes against America, and they are paying in blood. Since 1979, the terrorist Iranian regime has actively and intentionally facilitated the killings of Americans. They chant death to America and fund other radical terrorists who attack our country.
I told y'all she was going to make the whole situation sound, they scream unalive to America. She going to make whatever sound good.
Are seeking to destroy
exactly
Western civilization itself. These terrorists seized our embassy and took 66 Americans hostage in Tehran. They slaughtered 241 U.S. service members with a truck bombing in Beirut. They killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. And this is just a small fraction of their blood-soaked record. Prior leaders have been too weak and ineffective to address this threat.
Thank you.
Some, like Barack Hussein Obama, even sent pallets of cash that ultimately financed this terrorist crusade against the United States and our people, while signing stupid and naive deals that put Iran on the path of developing nuclear bombs. After years of endless appeasement and empty statements from politicians on both sides of the political aisle in this town, President Trump is finally the man of action. President Trump is holding these monsters accountable and permanently extinguishing their nuclear ambitions. Future generations of Americans will look to this moment as the moment where the specter of a nuclear armed Iran ended. At the beginning of Operation Epic Fury, launched last weekend, President Trump laid out clear objectives to the American people on what the U.S. military seeks to accomplish through these major combat operations. Number one, destroy the regime's deadly ballistic missiles and completely raze their missile industry to the ground. Number two, annihilate the Iranian regime's navy. And so far, we have destroyed more than 20 Iranian ships, including their top submarine last night, using a torpedo for the first time since World War II. There is not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, or the Gulf of Oman. Number three, Operation Epic Fury will ensure the regime's terrorist proxies in the region can no longer destabilize the region or the free world and attack our armed forces. And thus far, Iran's proxies are hardly putting up a fight. Number four, this mission will guarantee that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. It's safe to say that thus far, Operation Epic Fury has been a resounding success. American forces have struck more than 2,000 targets, destroying hundreds and hundreds of ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. As the Department of War said this morning, we expect to have complete and total dominance over Iranian airspace in the coming hours, clearing the skies for our brave warriors to continue achieving these noble and long sought-after objectives.
Yeah, America is very active in Iran right now.
There's been a lot of misreporting and intellectual dishonesty from the American media on why President Trump decided to launch this operation. So let me remind you, Operation Midnight Hammer, which took place last June, obliterated Iran's 3 major nuclear sites. Yet the terrorist Iranian regime has remained fully committed to rebuilding its nuclear program. How do we know this? Because Iran has pursued this path of war and violence despite President Trump dispatching 2 of his top and most trusted negotiators to engage in exhaustive and good faith negotiations to try and reach a deal. And the world knows this president's preference is always peace and diplomacy first. Look no further than the 8 additional global conflicts he has ended in the past year as proof. Unfortunately, the terrorist Iranian regime refused to negotiate in good faith. They chose this path of violence and destruction, and they are reaping the consequences of their horrible decision. The regime did what they always have done. They lied, they delayed, they tried to string the United States of America along. They wanted to buy themselves time to continue building ballistic missiles and other deadly weaponry that could harm our U.S. personnel and troops in the region, and to continue aggressively pursuing their unacceptable nuclear ambitions. U.S. negotiators offered to lift crippling sanctions on Iran and even provide nuclear fuel to Iran at no cost to support a civil nuclear power program. They additionally had the opportunity to accept U.S. support as an investor in potential projects to develop peaceful nuclear energy together under a mutually agreed upon framework. Yet in response, Iran would have to forfeit their enrichment capacity once and for all. But Iran rejected. They accepted none of these generous and unprecedented offers by the United States. Simply put, they refused to say yes to peace. And their refusal made clear that their number one priority was building a nuclear weapon with which to threaten the United States of America. Again, the country they have been chanting death to.
Now remember, the other day they said they weren't planning to attack anybody with their nukes. You know, they basically, man, that's crazy. But hey, Trump them stands firm that Iran was trying to attack America with those nukes
for nearly 5 decades. Let me state this again clearly. Iran rejected the path of peace because the terrorists in charge of this regime wanted to build nuclear weapons to use against Americans and our allies. President Trump made the determination, a courageous determination and decision, that the path the United States was on with Iran had only one outcome: massive death and destruction at the hands of a nuclear-armed terroristic regime. That path of death and destruction and threats against the American people have ended with Operation Epic Fury. Operation Epic Fury has forged a new path that will better ensure the security of the United States and our people. The terrorists made a bet that President Trump would be like many of his predecessors, that he would just talk and he would refuse to enforce his clear red lines. But that has proven to be a catastrophic error in judgment. When President Trump makes a threat, and I have reiterated that threat many times from this podium to all of you over the past year, President Trump does not bluff. The president's words are backed up by the mightiest warriors in the world who possess the most sophisticated capabilities this world has ever known. 49 and counting of the most senior Iranian regime leaders, including the supreme leader, have already been wiped off the face of the earth. Make no mistake, killing these brutal terrorists is good for America and makes the world a much safer place. I want to also extend our prayers and condolences to the families of the 6 U.S. military service members who have been lost in Operation Epic Fury. These heroes represent the very best among us. They laid down their lives in defense of our country, and we will never forget their legacy or their sacrifice. As the president said, we grieve for these American patriots and their families as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. President Trump intends to attend the dignified transfer of these American heroes to stand in grief alongside their families. I understand the Department of War is working on scheduling this transfer, and we will provide updates at the appropriate time. Finally, the Trump administration is also doing everything within our power to protect Americans in harm's way. Since the launch of Operation Epic Fury, more than 17,500 Americans have safely returned home from the Middle East, with over 8,500 American citizens returning home to the United States just yesterday alone. If you are a U.S. citizen in the Middle East looking to return to the United States, the Secretary of State asks that you please register with the State Department at step.state.gov. The State Department will identify where you are and provide travel options directly to you. The administration is already rapidly chartering flights free of charge and booking commercial options, which we expect to become increasingly available as time goes on and the success of this mission further comes to fruition. I know the President and Secretary of State Rubio have been in touch as well with our allies in the region directly about this problem, making it clear that it is a priority of the United States of America to bring every American home. The Trump administration will not rest until every American is home safely and until the terrorist threat from Iran has been completely destroyed. With that, I'll take your questions. Eric, why don't you kick us off today? Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here. And as you mentioned, Iran's regime, its leadership has largely been decimated. We have a sense right now of who is actually calling the shots in Iran. And we're also hearing reports that the Supreme Leader's son may be named his successor. Do you have any more information about that? I just had a quick follow-up as well.
Sure. We've seen those reports as well, of course, and this is something that our intelligence agencies are closely monitoring and looking at. The truth is, we'll have to wait and see. The president has said repeatedly that the objectives of Operation Epic Fury are the 4 military objectives that I laid out for you previously, to destroy Iran's navy, to destroy their ballistic missile capacity, to ensure their proxies in the region can no longer harm Americans, and to also ensure that they can never obtain a nuclear weapon. As for what comes next for Iran, the president has said, of course, it's a good thing for the United States to want freedom for the Iranian people, and ultimately we hope that freedom rests in their hands.
Caroline, we see the Arab and Muslim nations coming under fire as well. President Trump's vision for the region has been to bring the Arab and Muslim nations to the table together, Abraham Accords, obviously, with Israel. If this regime topples, could we see a new day in the region and really a new Middle East come out of this when the dust settles?
Well, the greatest deterrent to true and long-lasting peace in the Middle East has always been the rogue Iranian terrorist regime. And our Arab and Gulf partners in the nation admit that, as well as, of course, our close friend and ally Israel. We have seen all of the Arab partners in the region come together during this time on the phone with President Trump, many of them commending him for this bold and brave action to protect American troops and our bases in the region that are housed in many of these Arab and Gulf states. And I know that many of these regional partners are contributing their air defense capabilities as well. Jordan, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and the president continues to be engaged with all of them. Welcome. Garrett.
Also, to Bill Hubermy. Axios, I think, was the first to report this morning this phone call between the president and Prime Minister Netanyahu, saying that Netanyahu had given the U.S. this information about where the Ayatollah would be and that he'd be with his deputies on Saturday. How important was that information in the president making the decision to strike where and when he did?
I think it was important with respect to the timeline, but I think the president, prior to that phone call, had a good feeling that the Iranian regime was going to strike the United States assets and our personnel in the region. And the president was faced with a choice. Does the United States of America use our military and our capabilities to strike first, to take out this threat that has been threatening our country and our people for 47 years, or is he going to, as commander-in-chief, sit back and watch as the rogue Iranian regime attacks our people in the region? That's obviously an unacceptable decision. For the second choice there is unacceptable to the president, which is why he made this decision. As for where the Ayatollah was going to be, that obviously had an impact on the timeline of the operation, but not quite the president's decision in its entirety.
And then on the way the public is viewing this, we were sitting here last week. I asked you if the president was going to make this a big part of the State of the Union, if he felt like he had to sell the possibility that he'd do strikes like this. We're now 5 days on. He hasn't done kind of the traditional speech to the nation part of it. Does the president believe the country supports the actions that he's taken so far in Iran?
I think he does. And I think the president knows the country is smart enough to read past many of the fake news headlines produced by people in this room.
How many of you guys agree with the war in Iran right now?
That this action was unjustifiable. Again, this is a rogue terrorist regime that has been threatening the United States, our allies, and our people for 47 years. And the American people are smart enough to know that. And they've also been smart enough to listen to the president himself, not just over the past year in this second term, but during his first term as president, and also for the past 40 years of his life. This is a president who has been remarkably consistent on this issue, that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. And the president tried peace through diplomacy exhaustively and extensively. He and his team gave it their best go, and the president ultimately came to the determination that peace was not a pursuable path. The Iranian regime, they want death, they want destruction, they want to kill Americans, and that's unacceptable to this president. It's intolerable to him as commander-in-chief. Jackie.
Thank you, Caroline. Obviously seen the update from the State Department on the 17,500 Americans that have already come back, including some 8,000 just yesterday. There are still 6,000 that are looking to get out, as I understand it. And just in the context of what you just told Garrett about the president's decision on a timeline, if he had decided to do this strike before receiving, the specific intelligence about the meeting on Saturday, should there have been more done in advance of the strikes to try to get those Americans in the region resources and information to get home before day 3 of the war?
There was many signs put out by the State Department, and I wish that everyone in this room would report on them. The Secretary of State issued level 4 travel advisories dating back to January for many of these countries in the region. On January 14th, the U.S. mission to Saudi Arabia advised personnel and Americans to exercise increased caution and limit non-essential travel to any military installations. On February 11th, the U.S. Department of State Consular Affairs shared a list of countries with level 4 do not travel advisories. You can't be much more clear than that. Do not travel to these following countries. On February 23rd, the U.S. Embassy in Lebanon ordered non-emergency government personnel and family members to leave Lebanon due to safety risks, and we helped them do that. On March 2nd, the State Department urged U.S. citizens to depart Lebanon immediately. With respect to Iran, on February 27th, the Secretary designated Iran as a state of sponsor of wrongful detention and stated no American should travel to Iran for any reason. And again, on February 27th, the U.S. ambassador to Israel warned Americans to leave Iran, and they provided travel advisory alerts through the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. So the State Department was all hands on deck on advising extreme caution and do not travel alerts to Americans in the region. With respect to the Americans who are still in the region now, again, the State Department is asking that they register at the website so they can directly identify you, and we are actively and rapidly working to charter flights. There is some commercial flights that are taking off intermittently from these countries, and we plan to get Americans on board as quickly as possible, again, free of charge to them. And we have some additional measures that I think will be announced in the coming days. Again, I can also reiterate from the president's perspective, this is something he's brought up directly with our allies and partners in the region, that we expect their help in getting Americans home, and we will do that, and we will not rest until every single American is returned home safely.
Thank you. And then one follow-up just on how people might be experiencing this at home. With respect to the economy and the cost of oil spiking, is there a need to start those Navy escorts in the Strait of Hormuz now to sort of blunt the impact to people? And also, because Spain is a member of the EU, does that at all put a wrinkle in the president's plan for a trade embargo with them?
With respect to Spain, I think they heard the president's message yesterday loud and clear. And it's my understanding over the past several hours, they've agreed to cooperate with the U.S. military. And so I know that the U.S. military is coordinating with their counterparts in Spain. But the president expects all of our European allies, of course, to cooperate in this long sought after mission, not just for the United States, but also for Europe, to crush the rogue Iranian regime that, again, not only threatens America, but also threatens our European allies as well. With respect to oil prices and the economy here at home, of course, this is something that Secretary Bessent, Secretary Wright, the National Economic Council of Energy, that is led by Secretary Burgum, has been long working on and well in advance. Yesterday, President Trump announced the U.S. Development Finance Corporation will provide political risk insurance at a very reasonable price for crude carriers and cargo ships operating in and around the Gulf. And as you pointed out, Jackie, the president said if necessary and when appropriate, the U.S. Navy will begin escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. I think it speaks to why this action was so necessary, that ultimately the energy industry is going to benefit from the president's actions with respect to Iran, because Iran will no longer be controlling the Strait of Hormuz and restricting the free flow of energy, which, as you all know, controls 20% of the world's global oil supply. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. The president said yesterday there wasn't time to make evacuation plans because this all happened so quickly. Given how critical the president has been of the chaotic evacuation from
Caroline Levit say they doing everything right.
Afghanistan by the last administration 5 years ago, why wasn't there more of a focus on evacuation plans from the Middle East that could have been at least put in place, ready to go before the strikes this weekend?
Again, I just laid out for you that there have been plans in place and that the State Department has been very clear to the American people traveling within this region not to travel to these regions. We gave notices to leave immediately the countries where these Americans were within. And unlike the previous administration, we actually have a number. We actually have identified the number of people in the region who have requested help. We are in direct contact and engagement with them. And you have to keep in mind, there's a few thousand people who have requested assistance to come home in comparison to the millions who we understand are in the region. So we will help every single American who wants to come home if they're making that request of the State Department.
Americans who called the State Department hotline as recently as last night were being told, we can't help you, you have to make your own plans.
Well, the line was updated, and I expect every single person in this room to report on that accurately, so that information can be relayed appropriately to your audiences and to the American people. I think as journalists, you all have a responsibility to let them know that the line has been updated accordingly with the proper guidance, because I saw many people in this room very quick to do selfie videos with the line yesterday, but not so quick to report on the corrected message today. So that is something the administration quickly worked to address, and we have fixed that problem. However, we're also pointing to people to the website, again, to register so that we know exactly where you are. So when there are commercial flights moving into that area, when there are chartered flights moving into that area, we can get Americans on planes as quickly as possible.
Do you have any details on how many charter flights have been able to get out of the region so far with Americans on board?
I don't have an exact count for you, but I know that we're working on chartering many flights. As soon as we were doing it yesterday, we're doing it again today. And you should not expect us to detail exactly when these flights are taking off for obvious reasons. The Iranians have shown that they are not going to hesitate to target civilians in the region, which is completely intolerable. But for safety and security reasons, we're not going to be broadcasting when flights full of Americans are going to be taking off, obviously.
Caroline most definitely don't be playing, man. She gonna have us to prepare beforehand.
You said that the Iranian regime is being absolutely crushed. Can you explicitly say then whether or not regime change is a goal of President Trump's operation?
The goals of this operation have been made very clear, Danny, and the president has said them in his speech when he launched this operation.
We need 30 more likes, guys. 30 more of y'all who haven't double tapped their screen yet. Double tap the screen, man. This is Caroline Levit, basically speaking on the situation going on in Iran and the U.S.'s handling of the situation, guys. Double tap that screen if you have not. We need 20 more likes, guys. It helps out the channel. Double tap that screen if you have not. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are new.
And release that video in the middle of the night to all of you and to the world. The stated military objectives of Operation Epic Fury are as follows: eliminate Iran's ballistic missile threat, destroy their naval capability, disrupt missile and drone production infrastructure, sever their pathway and end their pathway to nuclear weapons. And I can report, as you all saw from the Pentagon today, that thus far this operation has been remarkably successful. Again, we're moving towards complete and total control of Iranian airspace. We have continuous 24/7 strike operations ongoing. We've had more than 2,000 targets that have been struck. Nearly 2,000 munitions have been employed. The first 24 hours of this campaign were described nearly as twice the scale of the 2003 shock and awe campaign. And we've seen that the enemy, the Iranian rogue regime, their retaliatory strikes against the United States and the threat reduction has reduced significantly. If you look at the Iranian ballistic missile launches, they're down 86% from day one levels. So while the United States military continues to increase its complete dominance over this rogue regime, they are weakening day by day.
Regime change is not a phrase that you would want to use.
Again, Operation Epic Fury, I just detailed the goals and objectives of this very quickly. But obviously, as the president has said numerous times, do we want to see Iran being led led by a rogue terrorist regime? No, of course not. So any day the United States of America is taking out a terrorist is a good day for our country and a good day for our people.
So given that point that you just make about the United States wouldn't mind seeing the government overthrown, certainly President Trump has talked about wanting to see Iranians overthrow the government. Has the president considered at all kind of how he views a U.S. role, if any, in Iran post-conflict?
I think it's something the president is actively considering and discussing with his advisors and his national security team. But again, right now, the focus, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, is on ensuring the quick and effective success of Operation Epic Fury. Sure, go ahead.
I want to ask you about the U.S. munitions stockpile.
I don't even know who's speaking because I wasn't looking at you. You can ask a question and then I'll go to you.
I want to ask you about the U.S. munitions stockpile. President Trump posted on Truth Social on Monday that the U.S. still has a good supply of weapons, but that we're not where we need to be. What does he mean by that? And does President Trump then want to ask on Congress to pass a supplemental to increase funding for missile interceptor systems like the ones being used to defend U.S. bases in the Middle East from Iranian
Thank you to everybody that hit that like button.
I don't have any updates for you on congressional asks from the president. As you know, under this president, we have significantly increased our defense budget, which is a good thing for the United States, for our national security, and for protecting our homeland. With respect to munitions, ammunition, weapon stockpiles, the United States of America has more than enough capability to not only successfully execute Operation Epic Fury, but to go much further. And we have weapon stockpiles in places that many people in this world don't even know about. However, the president in that post was pointing out that, unfortunately, we had a very stupid and incompetent leader in this White House for 4 years who gave away many of our best weapons for nothing, for free, to another country very far away by the name of Ukraine. So the president was pointing out how that was an unwise decision, but nevertheless, don't doubt the strength and the might of the American military. And I will also add, President Trump has rightfully been calling on defense contractors in this country to rapidly and aggressively produce American-made weapons because they are the best in the world. And the president always likes to get things done as quickly as possible. And so he's been quite vocal in his efforts to try to speed up our defense industry to protect our homeland.
Caroline,
go ahead.
Caroline, could you tell us about the president's current thinking about ground troops and whether they could be used if they were to be sent into Iran? What would they be used for? What's the situation?
Well, they're not part of the plan for this operation at this time, but I certainly will never take away military options on behalf of the President of the United States or the Commander-in-Chief, and he wisely does not do the same for himself. I know there's many leaders in the past who like to take options off of the table without having a full understanding of how things could develop. So again, it's not part of the current plan, but I'm not going to remove an option for the President that is on the table. Sean.
Did the United States airstrike a girls' elementary school and kill 175 people?
Not that we know of, Sean, and the Department of War is investigating this matter, and I would just tell you very strongly, the United States of America does not target civilians, unlike the rogue Iranian regime that targets civilians, that kills children, that has killed thousands of their own people in the past several weeks, and uses propaganda quite effectively, and unfortunately, many people in this room have fallen for that propaganda, so I would caution you from pointing the finger at the United States of America when it comes to targeting civilians, because that's not something that these armed forces do. Reagan.
Thanks, Caroline. Prior to the Iran conflict, the SAVE Act was really the focus of the news cycle. Is the SAVE Act still a priority for the administration?
Absolutely.
Can you just provide an update on the administration's talks with Congress to get the SAVE Act through?
SAVE Act is absolutely still a priority for this president and the administration. The focus, of course, of much of the president's time right now is on ensuring the success of Operation Epic Fury, but the president can walk and chew gum at the same time, and he's very much continuing to focus on the issues that matter here at home for the American people, including the passage of the SAVE Act, including on bringing down the cost of living, which is why you'll see the president in about an hour and a half at the Ratepayer Protection Pledge Roundtable, where he will be sitting with big tech companies, with AI companies who are building in communities across the country and have pledged to pick up the cost of the electricity tab in these small towns and communities across the country, which is a great thing for American consumers. So you'll be hearing from the president directly on this very important domestic agenda item later this afternoon, and it's something that he mentioned in his State of Union address. So check it off the list as another promise made and kept by this president. Sure, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. I just wanted to get back to Danny's question. So those 4 objectives that you read out do not explicitly include regime change. If those objectives were achieved and the Islamic Republic still existed, would that be an acceptable outcome?
It's a hypothetical question that I'm not going to engage in. Again, right now, the president and the commander-in-chief are focused on executing the success of Operation Epic Fury, which we are already doing so in a very tremendous and impressionable way. Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. The Trump administration reportedly is considering arming Kurdish forces in the hopes of inspiring a popular uprising in Iran. Could you comment on that report?
I can comment on the fact that the president has held many calls with partners, allies, and leaders in the region, in the Middle East. He did speak to Kurdish leaders with respect to our base that we have in northern Iraq. But as for any report suggesting that the president has agreed to any such plan is completely false and should not be written.
President Trump was saying yesterday that he's okay with someone from within taking over in Iran. He spoke about how Venezuela he saw as a successful model where Delcy Rodriguez took over and had a better relationship. Iran's President Pezeshkian, he took office in 2024 as a relative reformer. He's part of a 3-man council now replacing the supreme leader. Does President Trump see him as a potential successor who is more pliable?
Again, that's another hypothetical, and I haven't spoken to the president about this specific individual, so I don't want to get ahead of him on any assessments that should be made.
Caroline. Thank you. Yesterday, the president acknowledged that oil prices will be a bit high. As for gas prices here in the U.S., what is the admin doing right now to counter that? I mean, should they skyrocket? Is there a plan to help, Americans right now with those higher gas prices? And then a second question, on the rash that was on the president's neck, the White House physician said it was a preventative skin cream that he was using, but why is the president using this cream? What are they trying to prevent with this cream?
To your second question, I don't have anything additional to add to the physician statement that we provided to all of you on those questions, but I know the statement said that the redness on the neck will dissipate within the next couple of weeks. To your first question about oil prices, thank God we have a president who has exuded American energy dominance over the past year, an administration that is wholeheartedly focused on keeping prices stable as best as we can. Of course, this operation is temporary to protect the homeland, but crude oil prices did fall yesterday. They remain stable today after the president announced steps to ensure the stability in global energy markets. Again, those include the DEC offering reasonably priced political risk insurance and the potential for the U.S. Navy to provide protection for the flow of energy through the Strait of Hormuz. It is the president's belief and his economic team's belief that the economy continues to be very strong. It's robust and will be able to weather any of the temporary impacts of Operation Epic Fury. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Just to follow up to that, the timeline for making the Strait of Hormuz safe for oil tankers to transport their oil through the strait, what is that timeline and what can the president do to speed up that timeline?
I don't want to commit to a timeline, but certainly it's something that is being calculated actively by both the Department of War and the Department of Energy. They're working very closely. Both secretaries are in all of the briefings on this subject with the president, and this is, again, something they're monitoring, and if and when necessary, the United States Navy will provide assistance to escort oil tankers through the strait. Sure, in the blue.
Thank you, Caroline.
You're not in blue, Andrew. Go ahead. Yeah. Well, I guess you are, sort of. I'll go to you after.
You had mentioned about the commercial aircraft being used for the evacuations. What about the use of military aircraft? Would that happen in conjunction with that or subsequent to?
That is something that is definitely underway, and of course we're going to use that in conjunction. We want as many planes, whether they're chartered, commercial, or military, taking Americans out of the Middle East and returning them safely home. So yes. Andrew, go ahead. You're welcome.
At the top of the briefing, you listed a long list of grievances against the Iranian government, going back to the takeover of the embassy in '79, barracks bombing, the 80s, etc. But no one from the administration has laid out the imminent threat that was supposed to be taken care of by this. And the rationales offered by, say, Secretary Rubio, the president's national security advisor, said that the threat was retaliation against American interests from Iran after Israeli strikes. The president says it was his own feeling that Iran was going to attack. Why is it that...
I like he brought that up. Remember, I said something about Trump's feeling. He felt like they was going to do something. You know, he's asking, you know, how can a president just go off a hunch? His feelings. We got to have data behind that, you know. So he's basically, I like this question. Let's go.
Across the administration, you can't say what the imminent threat against the United States was that required us to launch this. And also,
that's why I asked y'all if it was personal or politics.
Prime Minister Starmer told Parliament today that his reason that he didn't allow the use of British bases was that he was not satisfied that there was a lawful basis and a viable, thought-through plan. Was there an attempt to provide the UK government with a legal basis for these strikes and a viable, thought-through plan?
To the first question, I completely reject the premise of your question. You have had the President of the United States, the Secretary of War, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the Vice President of the United States, the Secretary of State, and now I am out here today to explain to you exactly what led the President to make the decision to launch Operation Epic Fury. And President Trump does not make these decisions in a vacuum. This decision to launch this operation was based on a cumulative effect of various direct threats that Iran posed to the United States of America, and the president's feeling based on fact that Iran does pose an imminent and direct threat to the United States of America, based on the fact that they are the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, based on the fact that they were rapidly and aggressively building up their ballistic missile program to give themselves immunity within their country alongside their navy, so that inside their country they could continue to create nuclear weapons and nuclear...
Do y'all believe that, or is she telling the truth, or is she lying? Let me know in the comments if y'all believe it.
Bombs, which would of course pose a risk to Americans in the region and even Americans one day here at home. And then another point on this is the president found that through these extensive, exhaustive, failed negotiations with Iran, that they were hell-bent on death and destruction. So again, the president was not going to be just another president on a very long list who sat back and stood by and passed the buck of this direct threat to the next administration. The president had a feeling, again, based on fact, that Iran was going to strike the United States, was going to strike our assets in the region, and he made a determination to launch Operation Epic Fury based on all of those reasons. And I would like the media to actually report on all of them, rather than just picking sound bites from one person in this administration and saying, oh, they're contradicting the other person. No, again, these decisions are not made in a vacuum. They are made by the president's feeling that Iran was going to strike the United States and our assets in the region, and he was not going to sit back and watch that happen. The determination was made that the president was going to strike first alongside Israel, and that has obviously been proven to be the right decision and an effective one at that. Libby, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. A two-part question for you. First, has the president spoken with the family members of those U.S. service members that were killed? Second, given
so she basically said Trump had good reason for what he did, guys. She's backing Trump 100%.
You've outlined throughout this entire briefing. I mean, the United States has sunk a bunch of Navy ships. We've hit all of these targets. What can Americans expect the goal to be moving forward now that the U.S. has accomplished all of this? What is victory, given we've even taken out Iran's supreme leader? That was an explicit goal.
Again, victory will be determined by the commander-in-chief once the goals and the objectives that we have repeatedly laid out are fully realized. Again, we just, in the next few hours, will be achieving that dominance over the skies, which means the United States military will be raining missiles and weapons down on Iran to hit these specific targets that have been identified as crucial to take out by the Department of War. John?
All right, let's stop Caroline right there. Let's stop Caroline. Because even with all this explaining that her and Trump are doing, people still feel like Trump can't explain why he really attacked Iran, which leads me back to what I asked y'all at first. Is this personal or is this politics? Check this out.
Killed. 6 American service members have already been killed. 4 of them were previously identified. And deeply unpopular, deeply unwise decisions, and some of them absolutely crazy. Donald Trump may have just made his worst decision yet. An incredibly costly and reckless decision that the American people seem to already hate. I mean, we're on day 5 of Trump's war with Iran. Over 1,000 Iranian civilians are estimated to have been killed. 6 American service members have already been killed. 4 of them were previously identified. And today we learned the identity of another one of those service members. 45-year-old Jeffrey O'Brien of Waukee, Ohio.
Prayers for his family. Prayers for his family.
Our hearts are with his family. Of course, you can see him on the screen right there, just 45 years old. A new NBC poll out tonight finds that voters disapprove, of course, of Trump's handling of Iran by 13 points. And voters disapprove of Trump's decision to strike Iran by 11 points. It's only 5 days old. I mean, for context here, even the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan had popular support from the American people in their earliest days, which I have no doubt Trump is tracking. But the thing is, wars do not tend to get more popular as they drag on. So Americans have already soured on Trump's war with Iran, and it's not at all hard to see why. I mean, let's start with the reason why this administration says the United States had to attack Iran in the first place. On Monday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio told America that the reason war was necessary was because of the imminent threat that Iran would attack the United States. Here's what he said.
There absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded.
There absolutely was an imminent threat. We were not going to sit there and absorb a blow. So says Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Now, the only problem
Even after all that explaining, I told y'all we just got through listening to Caroline Levit explain. They ain't going with it. They are saying basically Trump had no reason to do this. How y'all feel about it?
That, according to Reuters, is that the Pentagon told Congress that there was no imminent threat of an Iranian attack, as in the Pentagon in the same administration. And when the White House sent notification of those strikes to Congress, they made no mention of any imminent threat. So that explanation didn't hold up for long or really at all. Then there was the other part of Rubio's explanation.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties.
Okay, so Rubio, part of what he says there is that the U.S. knew Israel was going to attack Iran, so we had to attack them first. Not a justification for a war ever, just by the way, obviously. But I mean, it is also quite clear to basically everyone who's paying attention that a huge factor here is Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel finally dragging a weak American president into preemptive military action against Iran, something he has been trying to do for decades. But Trump didn't like Rubio's explanation that Israel forced his hand. So when Trump was asked about what his own Secretary of State had to say, he said this.
If Israel forced your hand to launch these strikes against Iran, did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand.
Really? Israel didn't force our hand. We forced theirs. I mean, if you say so. And all of the contradictory explanations continued from there. It didn't stop there. There's more. I mean, for instance, Secretary Hegseth today suggested that this was in part a revenge mission because of Iran's failed attempt to assassinate President Trump 2 years ago.
Was revenge for what happened 2 years. I told y'all. Do y'all think that is political or do y'all think that is personal? She just said it once again. Check it out.
Revenge mission because of Iran's failed attempt to assassinate President Trump 2 years ago. Revenge mission. I mean, for instance, Secretary Hegseth today suggested that this was in part a revenge mission because of Iran's failed attempt to assassinate President Trump 2 years ago. Then there's the absurd justification that a combat unit commander reportedly told his officers that this was biblically sanctioned and signals the rapid approach of Armageddon. Points for creativity there on that one, I suppose. But of all of the explanations we got, I think the one that is perhaps the least satisfying, and there's a lot of competition for that, and perhaps maybe the most accurate, was this one from Trump himself.
You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that.
Okay, everyone. It was his opinion. He had a feeling.
I told y'all.
He felt strongly about it. Trump started a war with a country of 93 million people because, well, he felt like it. He had a feeling. And ridiculous as that sounds, that explanation now appears to be what the White House has settled on.
I think the president prior to that.
She's breaking this down well, guys. She's asking the same questions I was asking. Yeah, well, we just watched Caroline Levit a while ago, and basically she ain't buying none of it as far as the lady that's presenting from MS now, man. I'm just saying, man, good. She got a good perspective.
Phone call had a good feeling that the Iranian regime was going to strike the United States assets and our personnel in the region. The president had a feeling, again, based on fact, that Iran was going to strike the United States. The president's feeling based on fact that Iran does pose an imminent and direct threat. These decisions are not made in a vacuum. They are made by the president's feeling that Iran was going to strike the United States.
Could you tell that feeling based on fact was like a phrase written somewhere?
Let's go.
I mean, the thing about feeling based on fact, which rolls off the tongue, no doubt, it's not a thing. I mean, Trump's feelings are just feelings if they don't have facts, right? And we haven't had facts really laid out for us here. And it's probably not the best justification for leading the country into a war, to state the obvious. And if you think the Trump administration's reasons for starting this war are confusing, just wait until you hear their explanations for how it's supposed to end. I mean, this was Donald Trump on the day he announced the strikes.
To the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
Wow.
Donned his special USA baseball cap there and told the people of Iran to rise up and take over their government, which is kind of sounds to me like a clear and unambiguous call for regime change, doesn't it? But then here was Secretary Hegseth talking about that objective, same question, sorta, on Monday.
This is not a so-called regime change war. No nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars.
So which is it? I mean, is this administration trying to ensure regime change or not? In all seriousness. I mean, did you guys even meet about
She calling them out on their BS, y'all.
This before last weekend? Because these seem like pretty obvious, top of the list things to really coordinate the reasoning on, most importantly, privately, and of course your answers on publicly, so that people out there understand what's happening and why. And then there's the question of who will be in charge after the regime change they aren't calling regime change. I mean, they killed Iran's supreme leader. Surely they had someone in mind to take over Iran after he was gone.
Well, most of the people we had in mind are dead. So, you know, we have some in mind from that group that is dead. And now we have another group, they may be dead also.
So the people of Iran should rise up and take over, but there isn't going to be regime change, or maybe there is. But they did assassinate the leader of Iran, and they do want to replace him, but all their preferred leaders are dead. Got it. See, none of these goals make any sense. And typically, these are the sorts of questions that you really pore over for months among national security leaders, even among briefings with Congress. And now it appears that the most likely next leader of Iran will be the son of the guy they just killed, who is reportedly even more of a hardliner than his father. Nobody knows why they're doing this, why the country, why the United States is involved in this. Nobody knows what the goal is, and crucially, nobody seems to know how long it's going to take either.
We projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that.
4 weeks, 2 weeks, 6 weeks. It could move up, it could move back. It could be 6, it could be 8, it could be 3.
No clear answer, guys.
Okay.
When
not
this
much
will be
clarity
over.
there. No clear timeline for this, clearly. On Monday, the president posted to his social media account, quote,
wars can be fought forever and very successfully, and it's just as unclear how far the administration is willing to go in carrying out that war. Over the weekend, Senator Lindsey Graham, a close ally of the president, perhaps one of the biggest Iran hawks in Congress, ruled out putting boots on the ground as part of this operation.
There will be no American boots on the ground. This is not Iraq. This is not Germany. This is not Japan. We're not going to have any boots on the ground in Iran.
No boots on the ground.
Boots on
so
the
says
ground.
the Senate's biggest Iran hawk. Understandably, a big question lots of people out there have. But then the next day in an interview with the New York Post, Trump refused to rule out putting boots on the ground, sending American troops into Iran to fight another war. None of the messages out of this administration are consistent. None of them make sense. Even Donald Trump's own allies don't seem to know what to say or how to talk about it. I mean, some Republicans seem to be in denial that this is a war, even though President Trump calls it a war every chance he gets.
We're doing very well on the war front, to put it mildly.
We're not at war right now.
We have unlimited middle and upper ammunition, which is really what we're using in this war.
This isn't a war. We haven't declared war.
We may have casualties. That often happens in war.
Strategic strikes are not war.
But she is calling it all the way out. Talking about war, no war. Which one is it?
Is it all clear to you yet? Because I'm just as confused as you probably are. I mean, some Republicans have gotten so confused by this whole thing that they can't even keep their narrative straight from one sentence to the next sentence.
This is war, and we're taking out the threat.
You'll concede this is war.
We haven't declared war. They declared war on us, but we haven't.
War, Secretary Hicks said
we haven't declared
Just now you said this is war.
They called it war.
They called it war. What I was saying, okay, well, that was a misspoke.
That was a misspoke, everyone. A misspoke. Nobody in the Trump administration, or seemingly people who are speaking vocally on their behalf from the Republican Party, seems to know what the hell is going on. So far, the only reliable information we have been able to get has come from the handful of Democrats who have been briefed on the matter.
That's crazy, y'all. So a little bit about what's going on in Iran, guys. You know, a little brief run through. She gave us a lot of the inconsistencies, y'all. But according to Caroline Levit, they doing exactly what they supposed to do. And according to Trump, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. You know, even though we moved on Iran, you know, because Trump had a feeling it was finna happen. I'm just saying. All right, let's move on to the Epstein files, guys. They got none other than Pam Bundy coming to testify in front of Congress, guys. Check this out.
And documents from the Epstein.
She has been subpoenaed.
The House Oversight Committee voted today to subpoena Attorney General Pam Bondi as part of its investigation related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has agreed to answer questions on his alleged ties to Epstein. Lutnick claims he cut off contact with Epstein in 2005, but emails show the secretary and his family visited Epstein's private island in 2012. Lutnick says they had lunch and left after an hour. The two were also neighbors in New York City, and documents from the Epstein files show they had a business relationship as recently as 2014. This photo shows Lutnick, Epstein, and 3 other men. It appears to have been taken on Epstein's island on an unknown date. Last month, the Justice Department removed the picture from its Epstein Files archive site. It's since been restored.
You guys know that the Epstein story right now is overshadowing everything, guys. And Pam Bundy has been called back into Congress to testify. Do y'all think they would ask her about when she said she had the file sitting on her desk? Just like Christy Nome in trouble right now for saying basically that Alex Preddy and Renee Good were a terror with the ist at the end. Pam Bundy with those files on her desk, they ain't gonna never let her live that down as well, guys. Not to mention, the Democrats are saying that there are files that are missing, even though the DOJ say they put out all the files. It was 6 million, and then they only released 3 million. So where's the other 3 million, guys? Y'all let me know.
Oversight Committee has not yet announced a date for Lutnick's interview. For more, let's bring in Massachusetts Democratic Congressman Stephen Lynch. He's a senior member of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Congressman, thank you for being here.
Good to be with you, Lindsay.
What do you hope to learn from Secretary Lutnick and Attorney General Bondi?
Well, 2 different situations. One, Mr. Lutnick gave, false information when he was first approached about this. As you mentioned, he said he broke off all communications, yet we we have pictures and evidence that he was on Epstein's island far after he was convicted of being a pedophile. So that's problematic. We want to know. Look, he's the next door neighbor of Epstein in New York. He has the mansion next door to Epstein's, and so he has plenty of opportunity to observe Epstein. We don't know the level of his involvement. With Pam Bondi, it's a different situation. She has withheld meaningful and important documents from Congress. She scrubbed the information that she gave to Congress from all references to Donald Trump. So we knew some of that evidence was there.
And the missing videos, you know, and certain missing things that concern Trump. Yeah, she's gonna have to answer for all of that. Old Pam Bundy, you're gonna have to answer for all of that.
Not forthcoming. So we subpoenaed her today because of the amount of falsehood and because of the repeated obstructions that she has laid in the way of this investigation.
Do you know what documents the Department of Justice under Pam Bondi's leadership has not disclosed to Congress?
There are about 3 million documents that they haven't given us yet. They had 6 million. They've given us 3 million, but we don't know the nature of those documents. We do know that some of a large tranche of the information that identified President Donald Trump, that was withheld by Bondi until we discovered it through the lawyers for the victims in this case. And so when we compared notes, we knew that those documents existed, yet they weren't in the information that
Whoop, I told y'all.
Attorney General Bondi delivered to Congress. So, I mean, that in itself is obstruction of justice. So I don't know what her excuse is going to be, but it's just, it's beyond coincidence that all the stuff that had Trump's name on it was not delivered to Congress. So we think it's obstruction of justice.
So you voted today to subpoena her. What are the next steps?
Well, we'll have to work on a date for both her and Lutnick. Lutnick agreed to an interview, so we didn't have to subpoena him, but we were prepared to do so.
The committee has also asked 7 more people, including Bill Gates, to testify about their alleged ties to Epstein. What is your end goal?
Are they going to get Bill Gates in there too?
We can on this. You know, it's been a long time for these young women in terms of getting justice, but this, you know, the number of victims in this case is very large. You know, it's hundreds and hundreds of young women. There's trafficking going on from Eastern Europe to the United States. There's trafficking going from Mar-a-Lago to Epstein's estate. So, and you know, Epstein had a pretty robust video system in all his mansions and all the different rooms. So we believe there's probably more evidence there that would allow us to discover all the people who are involved here. We want to hold everyone accountable who should be held accountable.
And in January, you voted to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress if he didn't appear. I know you told Major Garrett with the takeout that Hillary Clinton's name was only in the files a handful of times. It was really Bill Clinton you wanted to talk to. Were you satisfied with their testimony?
I was. We've only recently been able to see the transcripts, but obviously both the Republican and Democratic committee members were very thorough. I think Secretary Clinton was especially, convincing and direct and just very good, a very good witness, in spite of some of the antics on the part of my Republican colleagues, taking pictures of her during a proceeding that should have been private and posting them on the internet. I thought President Clinton gave fair answers as well to those few instances where he was in Epstein's company, but also in the presence of his security detail as well.
Congressman Stephen Lynch, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lindsay.
All right, you know what I'm saying? So there was some on the Pam Bundy subpoena by the Oversight Committee, guys, about Epstein. I knew she was going to have to answer for those things that they said that were missing involving Trump, guys. Hold on, I got more on that situation coming up. I think.
See that the Department of Justice is just not complying.
But the way her department has handled the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. You saw a handful of Republicans, right, so people in the president's own party, joining Democrats on the House Oversight Committee to vote to bring Pam Bondi in, including Nancy Mace, the congresswoman on the Republican side. Watch this.
I have a lot more questions, and I don't expect to be talking about the stock market, so she better not bring those notes when she comes to the Oversight Committee.
That's a reference to the previous.
Say she don't want to talk about the stock market. She better not bring those notes. Y'all know Pam Bondi handled the committee real rough the last time she was there.
Is questioning that Bondi went through just some weeks ago in front of a different House committee on this very thing, where you see here survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse stood. They were in the audience. They were wearing shirts that talked about releasing the files. Let me bring in Ryan Nobles, who's live for us on Capitol Hill. So this is interesting. This is a real sort of shot across the bow to the White House, the Department of Justice, that they're subpoenaing now Pam Bondi, Ryan.
Yeah, and it's really born out of a sense of frustration from the members of Congress who are specifically interested in getting to the bottom of the Epstein controversy, that the Department of Justice is just not complying with the Epstein Transparency Act, which requires them to release every file available to the public as it relates to the Epstein files, and that they're only allowed to redact things if they're part of an ongoing investigation or to protect the identities or personal information of survivors. And members of Congress like Nancy Mace have felt that the Department of Justice has been way too heavy-handed with their redactions, that the redactions are inconsistent, that there are names like Les Wexner's name, for instance, the business partner of Jeffrey Epstein, an alleged co-conspirator. His name was redacted at one point, but then there are examples of survivors whose names have not been redacted. And they feel as though the Department of Justice has just not been forthcoming enough about why certain things have been redacted and how other things have slipped through the cracks. And so they want Pam Bondi to come in front of the committee, ask her about specific files, specific pieces of information, and try and understand this process as to why they have not been able to fully comply with this. And I would imagine as well, Hallie, that there's going to be questions about the fact that there's some 3 million files that the Department of Justice has just said we have in our possession, but we're just not going to release.
I told y'all about those other 3 million. Y'all thought I didn't know what I was talking about, man. I be paying attention to what these people be saying.
To the public for whatever reason. So there's a lot of tough questions that Pam Bondi could get from this committee.
When you talk about the files, when you talk about the documents, there's an interesting sort of development today, first reported by the Wall Street Journal, that the Department of Justice now is confirming that it's got like something like 40,000 plus documents that it's sort of re-reviewing, right? That are not out because they're looking at them.
Right, and the Department of Justice said in a statement today that this is part of the process, that they put this stuff out as quickly as they possibly could, that some redactions and errors that shouldn't have happened or should have happened slipped through the cracks, and so therefore they're going to bring back some stuff. They say the department has not deleted any files from the library. In compliance with the EFTA, our team is working around the clock to address victims' concerns, redact personally identifiable information and any images of a sexual nature. So they did admit there's some close to 50,000 files as of March 2nd that were offline for further review. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal report, among those files, Hallie, were specific allegations against Donald Trump, which of course has raised questions because this is not the first time that allegations against Trump have been taken off the website and then eventually put back up. So we'll have to see if those files ever reemerge, Hallie.
And then when you talk about, you know, the questions that they want to ask the Attorney General Pam Bondi, there's also kind of a new crop of people who they're asking to question, including Bill Gates, including Clinton confidant Doug Band, and others, right?
Who they gonna get Bill Gates in there? He's gonna have to testify about, you know, asking for that medicine allegedly, you know, so his wife didn't find out that he had an STD.
Yeah, and Kathy Rumler, the former Obama White House counsel. And then the other big name is Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, who you and I have talked about a lot. He's agreed to come and testify. Now, what's interesting about this round of you know, the Gates, Rumler, Black, Croft, These are all individuals who right now the committee is asking to come in voluntarily. They're not formal subpoenas yet. And if you're a witness and you're being asked to come in voluntarily, that does give you a degree of negotiating power. You can say, I'll come in, but only if you ask me about X, Y, and Z, or I'll come in under these certain conditions. As soon as it moves to a subpoena, then it becomes more difficult, and the committee is less inclined to meet your needs, especially if you're not a former president of the United States like Bill Clinton. So it'll be interesting to see, especially someone like Bill Gates, who's very powerful, has very good lawyers, how he handles this. So far, he's not responded directly to this request, but I would be very surprised if any of the folks on this list find a way to avoid having to answer questions of this committee.
Ryan Nobles, thank you for being with us. I appreciate that reporting, as you've been the tip of the spear there on the Epstein reporting. Appreciate it.
We thank you.
All right, guys. So we got the Epstein update, you know, basically with Pam Bundy being called in. You know, they're going to ask her a ton of things. We covered Iran and the situation going on over there. We heard from Caroline Levit as well as Donald Trump himself, guys, that says they feel like they're doing everything right, guys. We most definitely talked about the situation going on with Kristi Noem, guys, and ICE. And the way they feel about her and the way she's been handling things. There are a lot of Democrats calling for her to either resign, you know, or basically be impeached, guys. It could swing any way. It could swing any way. But shout out to y'all, guys. You know, that's my time. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Double tap that screen. If you're on a mobile device, you know, that's how you hit the like button. Or you can click those 3 dots in the right-hand corner. And also, you can hit the thumbs up. That's another way to like the video. Yeah, but it's a lot going on, man. And as they keep me updated, I keep y'all updated. And once again, I hope y'all enjoyed the show. Shout out to my new subscribers as well as the old ones. Shout out to all of my members. If you want to be able to get a membership and become a member to the channel, most definitely all you have to do is go back to the home page and basically it'll have a join button, or you can go to any video on the page, look in the description box. It most definitely has the join option as well. You know, shout out to all of my moderators, man. I know it get hectic down there sometime with all these different opinions, but y'all most definitely keep the chat under control, and I appreciate y'all, you know, and until next time, everybody, take care. Sidewalk Gang, checking out. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Y'all be good. I'm gone.